composites, ensuring your engine's long-term health. Stable outperforms the competition in independent lab testing. So at every fill-up, start with Stable.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio has you covered, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio. Or listen on the KSL News Radio Listen app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio. We have you covered.
8:59, traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion. And back to you, Steve.
Northbound 15 still sluggish in spots between the Temp Highway and Lehigh and Draper, also Midvale to Murray. And as you continue into downtown Salt Lake City, you still may want to avoid the 6 South exit. That's all due to heavy traffic on the exit ramp due to a motorcycle crash clearing right now at 3rd West. But the good news is 3 left lanes have just reopened on 6 South. Len?
In Davis County, the crash southbound I-15 just past Glover's Lane has been moved to the right shoulder. It had been blocking in pretty much the whole freeway there for a few moments. And traffic is moving quite well now, but there's quite a bit of residual traffic that's built up, and you've got slowing all the way back into Farmington from Centerville and then up I-15 again toward Kaysville. Get Dad the best Father's Day gift ever, a Minky Couture blanket. Save 50% using promo code KSL50 in stores and online at minkycouture.com. The best Father's Day gift ever. I'm Len Thomas in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll have some clouds today, 96 for a high, 94 tomorrow. We stay in the mid to upper 90s through Sunday and then back in the lower 90s for the start of next week. Right now it's 78 degrees downtown.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
9 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Amanda Dixon. Our top story this hour, Utah Senator John Curtis is urging his colleagues to slow down and not rush a vote on President Trump's big tax bill. Curtis was asked his thoughts about the bill during yesterday's Political Energy Summit in Washington.
I think a lot of us would be surprised if it passed by July 4th. But I think that's a false deadline. I don't think that we need to put a specific deadline on it. Let's get it right, I guess is what I would say, rather than fast.
Curtis has also been pushing back on one portion of the bill that looks to phase out green energy tax credits. He says he thinks some of them should be phased out, but they should be thoughtful in how they do that and not cost people their jobs. The Alta Ski Resort is using the off-season to make repairs on the Supreme lift. The resort is modifying the alignment of the lift because it's currently at an 8-degree bend. The repairs include using helicopters to remove the towers and install new ones. Our top national story this hour from ABC News, inflation edged up again last month. ABC's Jim Ryan has a look at the Consumer Price Index for May.
On a month-to-month basis, the prices we pay for nearly everything rose 0.1% between April and May and 2.4% over the past 12 months. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says the increase was driven largely by the rising price of housing and food. While the latest increase in CPI is small, observers on Wall Street say the bill for U.S. tariffs may come due in the coming months.
Economists are reportedly worrying about a summertime surge. Your money at this moment. Right now, the Dow is up 181. That's 0.4%. We're at 43,048. Coming up, we've got a hot day in store, a hot 7 days in store. KSL Weather is next. KSL News Time, 9:02.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Looking for reliable home services you can actually count on? I've got just the team for you. Mountain Home Services. They've been serving Utah since 1954 with honest, upfront pricing and zero hidden fees. Plus, they back every job with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. With summer heating up, now's the time to get your AC in shape. Mountain Home Services delivers fast, expert air conditioning service to keep your home cool and comfortable. And don't forget, they also handle electrical and plumbing work with the same trusted care. And here's the best part. KSL listeners get exclusive limited-time specials, but you have to call and ask. These deals won't last, so don't miss your chance to save. Call 801-543-2222 today and tell them KSL sent you. That's 801-543-2222 or visit mountainhomeservices.com. Get the service you need and the deal you deserve.
It's back, and you will be too. June 12th through the 14th at the Cache County Fairgrounds, it's the Summerfest Arts Fair, celebrating its 41st anniversary, featuring local and regional artists and musicians. You're going to love this, like you loved it before. Art, painting, ceramics, music, food. Summerfest Arts Fair is loaded with all the things that you and the family love the most. Then get set for an amazing lineup of musicians, featuring headliners the Lonely Hearts Club Band, The Last Wild Buffalo, and Music City Groove. Plus, enjoy other regional musicians like the Highline Drifters and Fry Pan Band. This is where local, regional, and national artists come together to celebrate the arts. So discover 165 artist booths, 38 performing groups, and 30 food vendors, along with a plein air art competition. Get the full details at logansummerfest.org. logansummerfest.org. Summerfest Arts Fair, June 12th through the 14th at the Cache County Fairgrounds.
This is Jeff Stout with Fink and McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple. News of recent layoffs reminded me of a quote from Bob Hope. A bank is a place that will lend you money if you can prove you don't need it. A periodic check of finances can prevent big problems later on. How much debt do you have? What are the payments? Do you have a rainy day fund? What would happen if you lost your job or had other unforeseen financial issues? Mortgage interest rates have been coming down, and there may be a window of opportunity to look at your situation in terms of a possible refinance and restructuring of debt. If you'd like to go over your situation, give us a call or take advantage of our quick application at 4minutemortgage.com. It might help. There's one way to find out. Give us a call. Fink and McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple. 801-264-9494. That's 264-9494. Or on the web at finkmcgregor.com. NMLS 289115.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion. And here is Virl Johansson.
There's on northbound I-15. If you're getting off that 600 South exit, they've reopened the left 3 lanes, so you're going to be able to move through there. We still have some residual delays there, though. Southbound I-15 still seeing some big slowdowns in Farmington, just past Lagoon, as we do have that crashed cruiser working to clean up. It's over on that right-hand shoulder now, so that should be a little bit easier. It's still causing some delays, though. Performance Automotive in Bountiful. Endless possibilities with 3 locations. Performance Ford Lincoln, Performance Honda, and Performance Toyota, where excellence is standard. Start your search at performancebountiful.com. Virl Johansson in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today will be partly cloudy with a slight chance of a shower this afternoon. Highs around 96. Right now it's 78 degrees. I'm Amanda Dixon from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
A handshake for a framework for a deal between the United States and China seems to be in the works. I'm Greg Skordas alongside Holly Richardson, and we're back with you again today on Inside Sources. We're going to have Robert Spendlove from Zions Bank join us in just a minute. But Holly, it looks like the United States and China have come to a tentative agreement. They met in London on Tuesday, talked about 3 things, and I think we want to talk to Robert about these. But one, not the least of which, is the tariffs, what level of tariffs each country will impose on the other. The idea, and we're going to talk about this later too, of rare earth minerals that China has kind of a monopoly on almost. They have 70% of the world's supply of rare earth minerals, and they do 90% of the processing.
Right.
And the fact that China currently has about 280,000 students attending American colleges, and they'd like to keep that. So the deal seems to keep all 3 of those in place, but it's not quite signed, sealed, and delivered yet.
Right. A handshake of a framework doesn't sound very solid at this point, but they're happy about it.
but it's got to be good for the economy. So let's bring in Robert Spendlove, senior economist for Zions Bank. Robert, you've been a great asset to this show many times, and thank you for joining us again this morning.
Well, it's great to be with you. By the way, congratulations on the new show. I've been listening just this week, and it's been really interesting so far.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks. It's been a lot of fun as we try to get our feet on the ground. So I'm watching the markets. They don't seem to be going crazy about this yet, Robert. We also have some news that inflation was up a little bit, but not a bad number. Can you tell us what this particular agreement could do for our economy right now?
Yeah, and this is a really important agreement. And, you know, it's always great when you do your prep by going on Truth Social. So that's how Trump announced this, was on Truth Social. And so we don't have the specifics yet, but what he said is they have a deal. The deal has to be approved. There's another great part. He says the deal has to be approved by me, President Trump, and by President Xi Jinping in China, but it's a deal in concept. And essentially, so if you just kind of back up, think about this escalation of this trade war with China, where, you know, we started off with increasing to 10%, then to 20%, then to 54%, then all the way up to 145%, and then China responds by increasing tariffs on U.S. goods to 125%. So we just had this complete shutdown, this trade embargo. On May 12th, we came down to 30% on China and 10% on the U.S., but then the negotiations started to break down. And so I'm watching Howard Lutnick, and he said, our strategy was mutually assured annoyance. So we've been doing things to annoy the Chinese. And the most annoying things was going after their students. So whether, Marco Rubio went after the students. They started shutting down ethanol exports, airplanes. And so what we're hearing this deal is now is China's going to allow more access to magnets, critical minerals, rare earths, and then we're going to allow more access to those students, to ethanol and airplanes.
You know what's so interesting to me, Robert, is you had this escalation, at least in theory, right? That we're going to have tariffs of almost 150%, and now we're at 55%, and I guess that's a good deal, right, for China?
55% is a really interesting amount because analysts have said that 55% is that critical level where it's not economically viable to trade with China. So this is back to Trump's art of the deal. He goes way up to 145%, and then he negotiates back to somewhere around 55%. So he's negotiating back to the worst case scenario for China.
Wow.
Why would China agree? I know this is a horrible question, Robert, but it would seem to me that China wouldn't necessarily want to agree to 55%. Not want to, of course they don't want to, but that seems like a harsh number, especially when we're already looking at 30%. To me, that number going up 25%, it is not really part of a good deal for China.
Yeah, and we're not sure if that 55% is going to stick. That's kind of the rumor amount, and I'm watching, just to see what they announce. So we'll have to kind of see where that comes down. But if that 55 is correct, if you look at the Chinese side. The Chinese economy is in real trouble right now. Their real estate sector is really bad. Their business sector is struggling. We're so worried about inflation in America. China's now had deflation for several months, so their prices are dropping. You look at the price of Chinese electric vehicles is coming down so much that it's going to start really causing problems for their market. And so what the U.S. is doing is pressuring China and saying, if you don't cut a deal, your economy is going to be in even bigger trouble, and we're not going to be there to help you. And so there's this pressure campaign going on.
Yeah, and you also have to start where you began this, Robert, which is what's posted on Truth Social and whether or not that's exactly accurate. because Trump posts this, and it's all caps. We are getting a total of 55% tariffs. China is getting 10%. Relationship is excellent! Exclamation point. That doesn't necessarily mean that the deal is going to be at those numbers, does it?
Yeah, and these trade deals, this is what's so strange about this deal is, trade negotiations often take years to negotiate. And there's line items and there's technical parts and legal parts. And we're getting this news on social media. And so we really need to see what this actual trade deal looks like. We need to see what the details look like. And then we need to see if it's actually lasting. Will the Chinese side accept this? Will there be more negotiations? What will change? We don't even know what they've negotiated with the other countries in the world. We only know one trade deal with the United Kingdom. We've been waiting for weeks to hear, what about India? What about Japan? What about our other large trading partners? And so there's still a lot of unknowns still in this deal.
I mean, that brings me to a question, and maybe you don't know, but how long do you expect before we see an actual deal? Could it be months or years? Is this just to stabilize the markets a little bit?
Yeah. So I think they need to start putting the meat on the bones really soon. Markets have been really jittery. The volatility of markets has been enormous. We've got the big, beautiful bill moving through. We've got to start having some certainty. This is what I hear when I'm talking to business leaders, CEOs, small business people. They're saying, we just need to know where you're going and we can adjust to it. But it's the uncertainty that really causes problems. So I would say, kind of our deadlines, we're looking at the beginning of July is the end of the pause on the reciprocal tariffs. Mm-hmm. The beginning of August is the pause on the Chinese tariffs. And then you've got the big, beautiful bill that needs to come out sometime in July. So I think what we're going to start seeing is in very quick succession, we're going to start seeing more trade deals announced, and they're going to start trying to have more certainty in this.
Last question, Robert. We've only got about 30 seconds, but do you think that there's a possibility that we'll get another stay on these tariffs and the administration will say, let's put them all out another 60 days, another 90 days until we can get things sorted out?
Well, remember, the stay on this is until the beginning of August, so they can still operate in that. And I think what we're going to see is in the next few weeks, them trying, maybe even today, try to put the specifics on this.
Robert Spendlove, thank you for joining us again on Inside Sources. When we come back after the break, we're going to stay on this topic. And instead of relying so heavily on China with rare earth mineral production, could more be done in Utah to step up production? Representative Ray Ward will share his thoughts with us after this break.
It's been so important in this news show to hear how the news is impacting you.
Midday.
How this is really going to impact your life or your children's safety or your husband's job. To hear that wow moment from you.
Midday with Maria Shilaos.
I invite you to join us from noon to 3 right here on KSL News Radio.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. I want you to know that it's the little things that count. Any remodeler can say they treat customers right when it comes to siding, gutters, windows, and exteriors. It's hard to know for sure. If a contractor uses cheap generic nails instead of super grippy ridge shaft nails for your siding, would you even know? If they use cheap $4 caulk to install your new windows instead of paying $9 a tube for the good stuff, could you tell by looking? It all comes down to the details and trust. At RGS Exteriors, we only do things one way, the right way. We never cut corners. We never skimp on details. We never do less than the job requires. That's why we offer our industry's exclusive 10-year everything guarantee. And it's why we have the happiest customers. If you need any gutters, siding, or replacement windows, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit rgsutah.com. That's 801-280-3110 or online at rgsutah.com.
Hey, listen to this. All I needed was a new starter. Got a great deal on eBay. Did it myself.
Yeah, that's cool. But how about the soft purr of an upgraded exhaust when it fits just right?
For me, it's the little things, like these new windshield wipers from eBay I installed.
From small fixes to big upgrades, eBay has all the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Keeping your engines healthy means protecting them in season and out. Experts trust Stable to do that. And third-party testing confirms it. Stable is the industry leader in preventing fuel-related issues, no matter if you use it in your car, boat, or outdoor power equipment. In season or out, at every fill-up or when you store, start with Stable.
The Management Minute is a service of the MBA program in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. I'm Professor Scott Hammond. Recently, 300 residents of Chelsea, Michigan, turned up to help a local bookstore move. They formed a human chain from the old location to the new location and passed almost 10,000 books to help this business. What a great community. You will spend much of your life in a work community. It might be a not my problem kind of a place, or it might be let's help each other always kind of a place. I saw a CEO helping on the loading dock, a foreman picking up a hammer, and a senior editor writing copy just to help when it was needed. Those actions don't just help in hard times, they create the kind of work communities we all want to be a part of. Learn more about healthy work communities in an MBA program from Utah State. Go to utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com. I'm Scott Hammond. Hope to see you in one of our classes.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger. Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6681. That's 800-583-6681.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared.
Prevent your child's next asthma attack. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many. Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
And expanded Inside Sources. Inside Sources.
Holly, do you remember in high school science class, you had this big chart called the periodic table of the elements?
Yes,
and
I
at the
do.
top of it was hydrogen and helium and carbon, oxygen, nitrogen. I mean, hardly rare elements. Those are the things we live and breathe by every day. But down at the bottom, you had these elements that you really don't know much about or hear much about. Samarium, dysprosium, terbium. These are called rare earth minerals. And I'll just digress for just a second. I was a metallurgist before I went to law school, so I studied sort of the mining part of these, how hard it is to get these out of the earth. And as we talked in the last segment, part of the problem that we have right now in our country is the fact that we need these for so much of our science and technology and energy development. And China has a little bit of a hook. They have a little bit. They have a huge supply of that we don't necessarily have in America. What I was interested in was a piece that was written in yesterday's Deseret News called Please Don't Undo Our Federal Investments in Energy and Technology, which was written by our next guest, Representative Ray Ward, who has some ideas about how we can do things here in Utah and nationally and keep those trade agreements and other things going. Representative Ward, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And tell us what prompted you to write this piece. It's really interesting, and I would invite all our listeners to read it.
Well, on a national level, the large budget bill that's going back and forth right now, some of the things that are being proposed in it will cut tax credits that were passed a couple of years ago that relate to technology innovation and investment and relate to energy innovation and investment. And I think that those investments are very important investments and that we need to keep those tax credits in place, both because we've promised to do so and because investments take time to pay off. And these things are just so important to the future of our country. And Utah's greatly positioned to benefit from a lot of them. We've got a lot of chances to do really good in these fields.
Representative Ward, thanks for being on. I have a question about the rare earth minerals. I know that the Utah legislature has really talked a lot about being energy independent, in fact, being energy dominant, and that Utah actually has a fair number of these rare earth minerals. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a little bit of a misnomer to call them rare earth elements. They're not super rare. They're fairly common. They're not hard to find if you go around looking for them. The tricky thing is wherever you look, there's just a little bit of them. So to be able to mine them and then have the capability to process them into a usable form, we just haven't invested and built up that manufacturing and processing ability here in the United States. China has built it up, and so to be able to do that here, I mean, those elements, you can find them here, but right now, China does it much, much, much more cheaply. So what China does is every time any other country starts to develop that capability, then China waits for there to be environmental protests in that country to say, we want to shut that mine down for an environmental reason, and China drops the price back down again so that other place can't compete with the low price until that effort goes out of business. There, in the past, both us and Europe and other places had these capabilities, but China makes it cheap enough that those go out of business, and then we're right back dependent on them.
Representative Ward, when you talk in your article about federal investments in energy and technology, it seems like you strike a pretty good balance between, hey, for the right now, while China has all of these minerals, it's in our best interest to work towards some sort of agreement, some arrangement where we can purchase these. But in the long run, even like you said here in Utah, maybe it's time to reevaluate where we are and maybe do more investment into local mines and mineral industries and see if we can start creating some of these ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. And for these rare earth elements are in the news today, but the other thing that's in there is battery technology. Battery technology is getting better, but the best battery plants in the world right now, they're all in China. Not just the biggest or cheapest, but the ones that are most advanced and have the most advanced capabilities. And every bit of energy that we make, solar, wind, all kinds of energy that we make is far more valuable if you can store it for a while and then use it in the minute that you need it. And that means having batteries that function. And we have to make those investments as well.
So what do you see as Utah's approach to becoming more energy independent? We've talked on the federal level about these tax credits and incentives. What do you see as something that Utah can do?
Well, those aren't separate things. Those are the same thing. I mean, there are many companies that, based on those tax credits, have started to move forward with plans that would happen here in Utah for producing those things. So cutting off the tax credits would cut off those companies and other companies who would want to invest here in Utah to produce all of those things.
What do you make of the current arrangement between, or at least, I don't know if you heard our last segment where we had Robert Spendlove on talking about where the agreement is, the United States and China getting closer and closer, and President Trump saying on Truth Social, hey, we're very, very close. First of all, how important is a deal between the United States and China? And second, do you think that there will be a deal ultimately?
So on the one hand, yes, absolutely. Of course there will be a deal. Neither one of the parties would like to completely crash their own economy, just to crash the other. But in the bigger picture, it's a little bit irrelevant what the deal is for today or for what this minute. As long as we lack the capability to make good advanced batteries with new innovation, and as long as we completely lack the ability to process rare earths, the noose from China can be just tightened as much or as slowly as they want. And if push ever comes to shove, where they did want to disconnect from us, we could not make almost any of the products that we rely on to have the electronics in them that need those small magnets.
Representative, we have a lot of, I'll call them closed or inoperative mines in Utah and throughout the West. Do you think that there would come a time when the legislature would consider some incentives for companies to reopen some of these mines that might have some of these minerals that are helpful for batteries like antimony, minerals that are helpful for magnets like samarium, things like that might already be here, right be in the ground, but maybe they're almost too expensive to produce and it's cheaper to get it from China. Do you think that the legislature can at some point get to a point where we can incentivize companies to start reopening some of these mines that might have some of these precious metals?
I am sure the legislature would be willing to consider that and try and figure it out. I think that would go much better if it was being done in conjunction with federal efforts. But it's important it should be important to everyone, but it is important to the legislature here in Utah as well.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Representative Ward. I appreciate your insights and ability to speak to us on this issue. Right as we're starting to wrap up, I just have a question for you as a metallurgist. What do you see? I mean, I think one of the issues that we've talked about multiple times generally is this is a security issue or a national security issue.
Sure,
if we are so reliant on China for this and we don't have the ability to produce those, do you see you personally, what would it take to ramp up a company that could, compete with China?
I think that we have the mines here. I think there's a huge mine in California that has a lot of these, and the representative is right. They're not necessarily rare earth minerals. We just call them that. But I think we need to figure out ways, and I don't want to get sideways with the environmentalists, but ways to get into some of these mines again and open them up because they are critical. These you think about a magnet is just something that you get your iron out of the soil and pick up cars with, and what kind. But a magnet is really just something that attracts another metal, and they're used in like you said with aircraft, with nuclear technology, with our military technology. I mean, there's things that are so critical to us. To me, another thing that we haven't talked about really is those computer chips, chips. China loves those. They want those so bad. It seems like this is the perfect match made in heaven, that we can get more rare earth minerals and they can get more chips. But I also agree with Representative Ward, which is really what your question was. We've got to do something right here. And the West has a lot of these materials. They have a lot of these minerals. I think Utah has a fair amount. And if we do want to compete and we don't want to get behind the eight ball and we don't want to rely on China, because we can't rely on China necessarily, especially when you're thinking about technology to help our military capability necessarily. We've got to do something here locally and nationally and try to open up our mining. And I know that doesn't fly well with a lot of people, but it might be a necessity.
It really does sound to me like a national security issue, and one of the things that we'll be able to talk about in the next segment is how that applies with national monuments, including Bears Ears.
Yep, we'll be back.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Amanda Dixon. Our top story this hour: the Trump administration is doubling down on the president's decision to activate the National Guard in California, saying it was needed to stop an invasion.
On Capitol Hill, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth defending the mission, saying it will go on for the next 60 days, estimating it will cost American taxpayers $134 million.
Why are you sending war fighters to cities to interact with civilians?
Every American citizen deserves to live in a community that's safe, and ICE agents need to be able to do their job.
Democrats say the president is making matters worse.
ABC's Mary Bruce reporting. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says he is sending the National Guard to San Antonio ahead of a large protest planned for this evening. He posted on X, quote, "The Texas National Guard will use every tool and strategy to help law enforcement maintain order." The San Antonio Police Department has confirmed the troops' deployment. Utah Governor Spencer Cox was asked how the state would deal with protests here if they turned violent. The governor says vandalism will not be tolerated, and those who cause any sort of property damage will be held accountable.
So if you want to protest, this is a great place to protest. If you want to do that, go to California.
The governor made his comments at his monthly KUED news conference. We've had several protests here, with those in attendance saying they want to show support for the protesters in L.A., but none of our local protests have been violent. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 141. Right now, we're at 43,008. Coming up, it's a hot day in store, and we've got clouds, so a possibility of a shower later this afternoon. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 9:32. Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
I'm back to doing what I love and more. Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Are you struggling with pain in your feet, ankles, knees, hips, or lower back? At the Good Feet store, we recommend having high-quality support in all of your shoes. Our personalized arch support system has helped countless people find relief, like Karen. Here is her Good Feet story.
After I decided my pain was too much, and my doctor actually suggested that I do visit the Good Feet store. Pretty amazing when they put the arch supports in your shoe and you walk around and you realize there's not pain, and you think, how can this arch support in my shoe make my back pain go away? But it works. And how can it make my knee pain go away? It was incredible.
Come to the Good Feet store today and see what we can do for you. Good Feet arch supports are in stock and available in over 300 different styles and sizes.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Stop in today at the Good Feet store.
I am down 50 pounds in 11 weeks, and this program works. The pounds melt off. It's amazing.
I let go of 50 pounds. It felt unreal. I was so proud of myself.
Get in the best shape of your life with Soda Weight Loss.
Just 3 weeks in, and pounds are dropping off very quickly. I am down 26 pounds in 3 weeks.
Summer is right around the corner. Your summer body starts right here because Soda's summer savings are on.
Every single day, Soda Weight Loss is helping people let go of the weight without drugs, without hunger, and the weight stays off.
I tried other things, came to Soda, just amazing.
I started on Soda 8 months ago, and I have released 80 pounds now.
Summer savings, stunning results, only at Soda Weight Loss. Get started now at sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com.
Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi. Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, most people saw 90% clearer skin, and many were even 100% plaque-free at 4 months. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion. And here is Virl Johansson.
We've got some major delays northbound I-15 in Orem and in Linden. It all started because of a crash just after the 1600 North on-ramp. There was tons of debris, so officials closed off all the northbound lanes for a moment to clear off the debris. That debris is now gone. Traffic moving again, but those delays stretch all the way back almost to Orem Center Street. Jordan Valley Water says we're using about 12% more water than last year, even though we don't need to. Let's fix that. Water one day less each week. Virl Johansson in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today will be partly cloudy with a small chance of a shower this afternoon. Highs will be around 96. Right now it's 78 degrees. I'm Amanda Dixon from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm Greg Skordas, and I am alongside Holly Richardson for day 3 of our new program. Hopefully you're enjoying it. We're going to go back to the topic we just talked about at the last segment, which is the national monuments. And I'm going to go back a little bit even further to 1906, the Antiquities Act. People don't really know what that is, although we've seen it more and more and more, which allows for a sitting president to create a monument set aside land to create what we call a national monument, with the idea that you're protecting cultural artifacts, precious landscapes, and more. And I think the first one was created by Theodore Roosevelt, who designated Yellowstone as a national monument, and obviously that's now that's gotten bigger. And of course, that was a brilliant move. I had no problem with that at all. But people have been concerned, Holly, over the years when presidents who are sort of on their way out the door decide, oh, we're going to create another national monument. And two specific ones here in Utah, Bears Ears National Monument and the Grand Staircase Escalante, were created by Democratic presidents, I think Clinton and Obama, not necessarily respectively, because I think Grand Staircase was first, and then sort of diminished and shrunk a little bit by Bush and Trump. And we go back and forth on these, and the legalities of it is, well, what is the Antiquities Act? And it seems to be sort of vaguely written to say presidents can designate land if it's got some historical value.
Well, and it was supposed to be, as I understand it, right, an emergency type situation. So 1906, people were not traveling to D.C. on an airplane and then back home to their home districts. And so this was a way to say, okay, there's something that has to be done with haste. And so this gave the president these powers. But what we've seen, as you've mentioned, we've got this back and forth now by executive order. First they're big, then they're small, then they're big, then they're small, right? And it creates uncertainty for sure. Also, not only with the environmental impacts and those types of things, but with the local communities, right? They don't know how, can they expand their tourist offerings? Should they shrink those? Can they expand to open these areas to mining, which is relevant to our discussion? It's that type of uncertainty. Well, now we have even more uncertainty with the new Justice Department advisory opinion released yesterday.
Right, which is really interesting because an advisory opinion issued Tuesday by the United States Department of Justice says that protections for land designated as monuments can be abolished by a sitting president because it is not expressly forbidden by law. So back to what you were just talking about, Holly. Once an area is designated as a national monument, you would think, so how does that change anything? Well, it changes a lot. It changes what the public can do on the land, and especially as it relates to what we talked about in the last segment, mining, drilling, that type of thing, and even some public access in terms of creating roads and egress and things like that. It also changes the surrounding community. I mean, because almost by definition, once you designate something a national monument, it becomes a thing that tourists want to go see. Oh, we never heard of Grand Staircase Escalante. It must be pretty cool. Let's go look at it. Right. But the local communities, like you said, are like, well, are we a sort of a drop-off point for a national monument, or are we part of a big state area development or anything like that? And it's got to be tough for these communities to try to deal with.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that they've dealt with, right? And we've gone back and forth, and certainly we have in Utah, we've got Native American tribes as well who are concerned about this back and forth. But one of the things that just really struck me is with this new decision, this advisory opinion from the Trump administration, Department of Justice, basically what they're saying is that you can completely undo the monument. That hasn't happened before. What has happened is that shrinking and expanding, but nobody yet has completely abolished a national monument.
Yeah, and that's because there was an opinion in 1938. Well, the Antiquities Act was 30 years old at the time, and that said that monuments created by the previous president under the act can't be revoked. So there has been an advisory opinion, or at least some opinions in the past, that seem to be a little bit inconsistent with what the Department of Justice is saying now, which is that they can. I mean, ultimately, if Trump does this, let's say that he says Grand Staircase and Bears Ears don't exist anymore as national monuments, there will certainly be a lawsuit. It will certainly go through the Utah State Federal Court, the Federal District Court for the District of Utah, up to the 10th Circuit, and ultimately, maybe a year, maybe 2 years from now, the Supreme Court will weigh in. Maybe it will be long enough that there will be another president coming in and saying, well, just kidding, we're going to open this up again. But I do think there has to be some understanding through the courts as to what power a president has to create these. And we go back to the concept of what the size is, and that's a little different than what the Department of Justice is talking about now, which is get rid of it altogether.
Right.
But I think Trump and I think Bush brought the grand staircase back a little bit, or I forget who it was after that sort of dialed back what Clinton had tried to do. Is there what power does a president have to expand or contract an area that's been designated as a national monument, and what limits does a president have when he or she says it's going to be half the state of Utah? Because
right.
presidents, we seem to get more and more national monuments right. every term. We're not dialing them back. We're protecting more and more federal land, and protecting is a word that I'm using, but we're also restricting it from certain uses that I think are important right now.
Yeah, and to your point, President Biden, on his way out, actually established new monuments. He had done them, I think, before he left, but he also, right at the very end of his term, established at least one new monument. But one of the things, again, I think, and we see this, your point to the size, right? The Antiquities Act specified protecting cultural artifacts, right? And I think one of the arguments against the expansion of Bears Ears and Grand Staircase was that it was too much basically open space. It wasn't protecting the petroglyphs. That was contained within the smaller monument that was shrunk the last time President Trump was in office. And that I think there are some people who can come to an agreement. One of the things that's interesting is how many people do you get to come to the table? If you just have a president who creates or shrinks by executive order, what that's saying is you don't have the local people at the table, and you don't even have the state at the table, right? So I know Utah has really been proactive at trying to say, look, you've created it, we'll deal with it. This is what we think the smallest size should be, right? And you've created this, and now let's go down to this. It'll be interesting to see with this new decision about you could potentially abolish, what happens with that. And here's one more thing. We've talked about uncertainty. We talked about it with tariffs and the economy, but you have uncertainty now with the local residents, local economy. The one way to solve this is to get Congress to pass a law.
Right. And Utah has, you mentioned this a second ago, has as much skin in the game as any state in the union, because
Sure.
we have probably as a percentage as much federal land as any state. I mean, some states don't care.
We're the second highest. We're 2/3, right? Nevada's
Right.
slightly higher, but we have 2/3 of our state is public lands right now.
And a lot of Utahns, including some legislators,
Federal land.
right, feel like the state could control that better,
Yeah.
and it's done better on a state level than a federal level, and that the feds should stay out of our business and let us run the lands and let us decide what's best and set up cities and areas that can sort of manage the land in a more
Local
productive
control.
way than the federal government. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk to a Utah lawmaker about this very issue and the possibility of the president having the ability to abolish national monuments.
This is Christian Staples with Arctic Spas. It is time for our annual spring clearance sale at Arctic Spas. Tons of hot tubs, swim spas, all-weather pools, saunas, and cold tubs all on sale at up to $7,500 off. Yes, up to $7,500 off. Just in time for the summer fun to begin. Plus, we have a few models left over from last year, like an Arctic Spa Polaris, a 7-foot by 7-foot with 40 massaging jets, 2 pumps, ozone water purification, UV water purification, multicolored LED lights, and a waterfall, now discounted to $89.95. Swim spas starting out at $19,995. This brings a pool to your backyard all year long, but especially for the family fun this summer. Comfort and convenience is on sale with our automated saltwater system. Or save even more with almost new refurbished Arctic Spas from years past. Start out online at ArcticSpasUtah.com to pick out your favorite spa. Then stop by one of our 3 Arctic Spa stores covering all of Utah: Salt Lake, American Fork, and St. George. Arctic Spas, the only spa built for Utah's harsh climate.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
Tay-Tay was a typical girl that loved pink, singing, and all kinds of animals. At 3 years old, she tumbled off a horse and received a traumatic brain injury. Her family prayed for a miracle, and when they realized their daughter would not survive, they made the decision to donate her organs. Because of her donation, 4 other people received her organs and tissue, allowing others to live. Go to donorconnect.life and read about what it takes to become a donor. Did you know many people think that they're too old and not in good enough health to be a donor? Anyone can be a donor. If you were told that it could save a life for someone close to you, or even a stranger, would you please donate? Finding out more on why you should become a donor is pretty easy. DonorConnect.life can walk you through the process and what it takes to simply sign up. Check yes to become a donor when you renew your driver's license. Give hope, heal life. DonorConnect.life.
Regardless of how old your air conditioner is, there are a few things you can do to help it last as many summers as possible. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and like so many things in our life, it's easy to take our air conditioner for granted. If you keep a clean filter, rinse the outdoor unit off every once in a while, and have it serviced once a summer, you can reduce your risk of unexpected breakdowns. But eventually it will break down, and if someone tells you that your only option is to replace it, don't be afraid to get a second opinion. You could save thousands of dollars repairing it instead of replacing it. Any Hour rarely comes across an air conditioner that just can't be repaired. That doesn't mean you won't choose to replace it anyway, but being told you don't have options, that's not cool. So if you want honest answers and straightforward options, give Any Hour Services a call. And remember, every week this summer, Any Hour Services is giving away an air conditioner to one lucky customer as part of our Coolest Summer Sweepstakes. No purchase is necessary. You can see official rules or schedule your service at anyhour.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Hey, Ryan, you remember that trip we took in our tent trailer down to Southern California? Oh, that was the best.
Making memories with Paris RV. Hook up to the 2025 Forest River Rockwood 16 OTG for only $9,195 or $148 per month, zero down. Or the 2025 Highland Ridge Open Range 177BH for only $14,995 or $171 per month, zero down. Or the 2026 Coachman RV Catalina Summit Series 7 134BHX for only $14,995 or $171 per month, zero down.
Take your family out RVing with Paris RV.
Paris RV is your locally owned, family-run RV dealership. We strive hard to find the very best RVs for the price. With 4 locations, over 1,000 RVs in stock, 42 service bays, and 4 super parts stores. We're sure to help take your family on the best RV vacation. Check out our perfect family bunkhouse trailer, the 26BH, that sleeps 9 for $19,995 or $227 a month, zero down. Life is short. Enjoy it. North Murray, South Murray, Payson, and Pocatello. ParisRV.com.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. With honest conversations that let them know what we expect. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be shared with friends or family. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Inside Sources.
So, in President Trump's first term, he reduced the size of Bears Ears and the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monuments and called them a massive land grab. And just yesterday, the Justice Department issued an advisory opinion saying that it was possible to completely abolish them, and saying that the 1938 determination that you mentioned, that monuments created by previous presidents under the Antiquities Acts couldn't be revoked. Now they're saying that they think that it could be revoked. We have on the line with us Representative Logan Monson, and he represents a number of Utah's rural counties. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So our first question right out of the gate is, what is your first initial take on hearing this Justice Department advisory opinion?
You know, it's interesting that it's being talked about again, and we knew it would. We knew that this would be a hot topic in this new Trump administration. People from where I represent support this. They support these kind of decisions, getting rid of monuments and shrinking them down. At this point, what's happened has happened. The monument's there. People are aware that it's there, and they're going to visit. So we really need to find ways to manage this area in a responsible way.
Representative Monson, why are the people concerned about, and I guess I'll answer the question by asking the question, federal regulation and the federal government setting aside these areas? What's the pushback to that?
Oh, pushback is, I mean, people have farmed and ranched and used minerals and all kinds of things on this land for hundreds of years. And they've done it in a way that's responsible, that's safe, that's really just protecting the best interests of the land as it is. I mean, you see when grazing doesn't happen on land, there's problems with it. When we're not using the land how it is intended to be used, we're not going to be able to protect it in the way that it should. So really just the anxiety behind it all is really the federal government coming in and saying that they're better managing an area than we are, essentially.
So one of the issues we've been talking about this morning is critical minerals. And do you actually, during the last Trump administration, there was a 98-page document that was released talking about a mineral extraction plan for Grand Staircase, Escalante National Monument, the parts that had been shrunk under President Trump. What do you anticipate with your local communities with this discussion about potentially extracting minerals from that area?
You know, I think it's been done for years and years, and why not? Why not extract minerals safely in areas that have them? I mean, we depend on other areas of the world to provide these minerals with, and we have an opportunity to do it here and do it safely. We're not going to tear up the beautiful landscapes that we have, and it's been done safely before. It can still be done safely now.
Representative Monson, do the people in your group, your residents, feel like that these national monuments shouldn't be created, or that they've been created and they're much too big? Do you? I mean, what I guess I'm asking is there a way to keep Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante, but shrink their size so that they're a little more, I wouldn't say manageable because that's not the right word, but more so that the state can still have access to some of the lands around them?
Right, and I think manageable is an appropriate term, because I think that we're looking at a landscape of 1.3 million, 1.4 million acres with two people that are managing that. There's not money to do it, but I think when you shrink it down to a size that is a little bit more manageable, and we can put some money into that, I think that there's some room for that to happen. I think that a lot of the people that in this district, you're going to get some that say, yeah, abolish it completely. Get rid of the monuments. We don't need them. And then you'll have others that come in and say, no, like there's some room for a smaller monument to be here. There's definitely some things that could use a little more hands-on protection. And then you're going to have people that say, no, make it as big as possible. Take it all. So really you're going to have three different approaches there. But I think that the appropriate way is to make it as small as possible. If that means getting rid of it and having the state come in and do something, that's fine too. I just think you're going to have a mix of feelings on all of it.
And do you feel like, as Holly just said, that it's almost a necessity in this day and age that with mineral production and, let's face it, oil production being as important now as it has been ever, that there has to be a little bit of give and take with the federal government so that the locals and so that businesses can get into some of these lands and produce things that are maybe more critical than ever in terms of our national security and our economy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that national security is a big deal, especially for this area. We have a lot of the critical minerals and things that are being produced in other countries, and we're paying to have that brought in. So I think it does provide a good sense of national security, state security. But really, I think that what it comes down to is who's managing it and how it's being managed. And I think that there's ways to do it better than what it's currently.
So Representative, you mentioned just a second ago that if it were abolished completely as a monument, or the two of them down there, if they were abolished completely, that maybe the state would step in. Would that potentially look like a state park, or what do you, like in your mind, what would that look like if the state were to step in and manage that area?
Yeah, I think that nothing's off the table, and of course that's going to get people anxious from all different directions. I think that there are ways to do it correctly. I think state parks are a good way to do that. You have a smaller area that you're doing. You have infrastructure there that can support those kind of things. Now, those kind of things aren't perfect either. I don't know that I have a perfect answer for what should be done, as I'm not an expert at public lands or just the mineral extraction or managing a site like this. But I do think that is a possibility that would be good to protect the areas that we need to protect, provide information to people that are visiting. I mean, like, if you think of the federal government and even our state government, how many of these people haven't even been down to Blanding, haven't been or seen Bears Ears?
Right.
And we're talking about a huge area that people have never seen. They have no idea what it looks like. So that's where I think people get really frustrated, is people that haven't even stepped foot on this land come in and say, this is what you're going to do.
Let me ask you one last question, and this might be unfair because it might be broader than what we're talking about here. But when an area is designated as a national monument, what changes with respect to that land in terms of public access, in terms of mineral production? What does the designation really mean to our listeners if they're joining us right now?
You know, there's a lot of processes that go into place with the monument. You have to have management plans put into place, and we've had that every time it's changed or restructured. We've had to go in and redo the resource management plans. And so that's really kind of where the restrictions on things come in. They're all different. Every monument has different restrictions, but really it just sets it up to have those restrictions that aren't currently there. It'll still be federal land. It'll still be managed federal land if it were to be abolished. But the planning process and kind of who's engaged in that is what changes. If you look at some of the signs now that say Bears Ears National Monument on there, and you notice underneath they have the emblems of the different agencies or organizations that kind of were involved in making some of these decisions, you'll notice the state of Utah is not there.
Yeah.
Very interesting, and that's kind of where I think most people get frustrated.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. When we come back, we're going to follow up on the LA protests and see where we are. It's a subject we've been covering all week.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Amanda Dixon. KSL's top story: a Nephi therapist was arrested after police say he sexually assaulted one of his patients and then threatened to hurt himself if they reported him. Police say Kevin Michael White groomed the victim over years of therapy. Our top national story this hour from ABC News: President Trump has posted on social media about a deal he says the U.S. struck with China. ABC's Britt Clennett says the deal is centered on the buying and selling of rare earth minerals.
We know that China holds this near monopoly on so-called heat-resistant magnets that are made with those rare earth minerals. That's a crucial component in electric vehicle motors as well as military hardware. That's something both the U.S. and Europe have been recently running low on.
According to the president, there will be a 55% tariff on Chinese goods imported into the U.S. Elon Musk is addressing his online spat with President Trump, writing on X he now regrets some of his past posts about the president. He says he went too far, and he already deleted the post where he accused the president of being on Jeffrey Epstein's list. On Sunday, President Trump told NBC News Musk could face serious consequences if he tries to help Democrats in upcoming elections. Your money at this moment: the Dow is now up 156. We're at 43,023. Coming up, it's hot, and it's going to stay that way, at least for a while. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 10:02. A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Imagine waking up every morning with a smile you're proud of. No more hiding, no more pain. Stubbs Dental Implant Center, Utah's Best of State winner for 3 years in a row, has helped thousands of people ditch the dentures and say goodbye to missing or broken teeth. Their expert team specializes in giving you a permanent, natural-looking smile with dental implants that feel and function just like real teeth. With over 2,000 five-star Google reviews, their patients say it best.
Dental implants gave me my life back. I feel confident again. I feel like I can be myself.
There was no way I was getting dentures. Getting dental implants from Stubbs Dental has been the best decision of my life.
Let the expert team at Stubbs Dental help you take the first step to changing your life with dental implants. Schedule your complimentary consultation today, a $350 value, absolutely free. Visit StubbsDental.com today. That's StubbsDental.com. StubbsDental.com.
Incredible savings on all Bernina machines at Dave's Bernina in Provo and St. George.
Don't miss our sun-kissed savings, such as $200 to $400 off machines $2,000 to $5,000, $500 to $700 off machines $5,000 to $8,000, $800 to $1,000 discounts on machines $8,000 to $15,000. And get $1,500 savings on machines $15,000 and up. Plus a limited time offer of 2.99% interest for 60 months on certain machines.
Come in now for bargains on trade-ins, classroom, and demo machines that come with warranties.
The Burnett 33 machine is only $199 and the Burnett Academy $349.
Come see the Bernina 990, the most amazing revolutionary sewing machine in the world.
With a discount up to $1,500.
Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo. Dave'sBernina.com.
We have emergency traffic brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion, and here's Beryl Johansson.
Well, Amanda, we've got 3 miles of delays northbound I-15 into Orem and Linden. Those delays start just after the Center Street exit and go all the way up to about 1600 North in Linden. Right now, and Linden at about that 1600 North on-ramp, we've got officials blocking the left shoulder and the HOV lane as they work to clean up a crash. Those delays, like I mentioned, stretching all the way back to that Center Street exit. Garden City, Utah in beautiful Bear Lake presents Little Texas on July 5th at Garden City Heritage Park. Games, live music, and a fireworks show, all free. Visit bearlake.org for details. Beryl Johansson in the KSL Traffic Center.
We should see a high today around 96 with a slight chance of a pop-up thunderstorms this afternoon. 94 tomorrow. Right now, it is cloudy and 80 degrees. I'm Amanda Dixon from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
A story we've been following every day this week, and it's a story that continues to develop, relates to the protests that are occurring in Los Angeles. And for those of you that haven't been with us, they started with ICE agents going into certain areas of Los Angeles and arresting individuals for being undocumented. They went to a couple of businesses and took people into custody for being here illegally. There were some individuals, some citizens who protested this, and their protests started out as, hey, what are you doing? Got a little more confrontational, as you might expect,
right,
where they were sort of in the face of the ICE agents. LA Police Department tried to crack down on that. The administration, the Trump administration, felt like they weren't doing enough and called in the National Guard. And I think we talked Monday about the fact, Holly, that the National Guard hadn't been called in on a state emergency without the permission of the state governor since the 60s. So this was something, I mean, they get called in periodically, but the governor and the mayor, the governor of California, the mayor of Los Angeles have both said, hey, we don't need your help. It continues to ramp up. Let's get the latest on this from Matt Gutman, who's downtown in L.A. with the latest.
L.A. Mayor Karen Bass issuing a curfew for downtown L.A. that could last several days, hoping it'll stop vandalism and looting of businesses.
Law enforcement will arrest individuals who break the curfew, and you will be prosecuted.
But protesters continue to pour into the streets of downtown LA. And when hundreds of protesters briefly blocked traffic on the 101, police pounced.
So I have to say, right, when you deal with protests, we understand in this country, because of the First Amendment, the right to do that, the right to peacefully protest. And there always becomes a question as to what extent can the government come in and not ban protests, but regulate it. And at the LA mayor, as we just heard, is at least putting a curfew down. Because I think we've heard with everyone we've interviewed this week that the carnage all occurs in the middle of the night. It's not what happens at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right. In fact, yesterday I saw several posts on social media that there were protesters and they were singing songs or blowing bubbles, literally, right? So there were that was very peaceful. But that is the question I have for you as the legal expert. If you have somebody who is violating curfew, and we know several dozen people, more than 24 at least, were arrested for violating curfew last year, what's the type of penalty that's associated with that?
So that would be a fairly minor penalty. A curfew violation is, I'm almost certain, would be a misdemeanor. There have been something like 370 people arrested in Los Angeles as of now, but most of those have been involved with the violence and the what we'd call vandalism, which is a crime that, notwithstanding whatever's going on, if you destroy a car or a building, you break into something,
the looting,
you're committing a crime. So when the state comes in and creates a crime that didn't exist before, which is this curfew, typically that would be a fairly minor crime, but it does allow law enforcement to take the violators into custody, or at least remove them from the scene. I remember talking with one of the lawyers for the University of Utah when we were dealing with all the Palestinian uprising and protests and whatnot, and they tried to develop a plan, and I thought it was really interesting to say, okay, these areas you can protest, and these hours you can protest, but don't get so that students aren't allowed to get into their school. Don't allow it so that there's people getting hurt or something like that. Don't let the protesters do more than protest. And that's always a hard decision in this country. But I think that the LA mayor's first step, which is that the curfew, could potentially make a lot of sense. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. We'll see what happens in the next few days. But you said only a few people have been arrested for
curfew violation, and things do seem to be ratcheting down. But between Governor Newsom of California and President Donald Trump, those tensions seem to be escalating. And there are protests now that are spreading across the country, and there are multiple protests planned across the country for this Saturday. We have ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers with the latest from the White House.
President Trump is continuing to criticize California Governor Gavin Newsom, posting on social media Wednesday morning that the governor is, quote, incompetent. The president, in a new podcast interview with the New York Post, again left open the possibility of Newsom being arrested, with the president's reason for that being he's not doing a good job. Newsom, meanwhile, on Tuesday night, slammed the president.
He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety.
Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
So there's a little bit of escalation both ways here.
Right. I mean,
these are two men who are daring the other.
Right. And, one of the things that's interesting to me, I've never heard of somebody being arrested for being incompetent at their job.
Right. Especially a political person. Right. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess he's not going to be arrested, but if the president stands in and says, we're deploying troops here, and the governor says, no, you're not, or stops them, or for some reason is able to forbid them from going into an area after the president designates that, it could be some violation.
We've seen congressional representatives be arrested for protesting and trying to prevent ICE from entering a building or arresting someone. So I guess that could happen. One of the things of escalation that concerned me yesterday was Speaker of the House Mike Johnson saying he supported the idea of tarring and feathering Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, there's no place for that. I mean, there's no place for that discussion at all.
Right, exactly. That's a particularly horrible thing to do to a human being, right? We know that with people who have settled the state of Utah.
Yeah, you have to assume that it was tongue-in-cheek, but it's still bad.
You should not say that.
Yeah, it's not something you should say.
Yeah.
But the rhetoric between these two men has gotten, between Trump and Newsom, has gotten way out of hand. and neither of them seems to be wanting to back down. I mean, even today we're seeing more and more conversations, like you said, Trump saying he should be arrested, Newsom saying,
"Come get me!
I double dog dare you!
Double dog dare!
Come and get me! Bring the handcuffs."
Yeah, part of our conversation this week has been who has the right to call up the National Guard, and typically that's under the purview of the state's governor, and former Governor Gary Herbert actually did an interview yesterday where he said if he were in Newsom's shoes, he would be deeply concerned and offended by this idea that the federal government is going to come in over the top of the governor and say, hey, we're mobilizing the National Guard. But we also see in Texas, so the Texas governor is anticipating some large protests in Austin this weekend, and he has mobilized the National Guard. But he didn't go talk to the president. The president didn't say, I'm going to mobilize because you're going to have a big protest. It followed the proper chain of command, which is the state governor.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point, Holly. The National Guard is our federal troops at their core, but they're assigned to a certain state. So the governor of the state can call in the National Guard, and they do in cases of emergency, the fires in California, everything. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the governor has the right to do that. The president will usually support that decision. It's odd. It's rare. In fact, it hasn't happened, like I said, in 60 years that the president chooses to bring it in and that the governor says, hey, I wouldn't have done that. Utah Governor Spencer Cox was asked how the state would deal with protests here if they turned violent.
And just a word of warning to anybody who is thinking about any type of violence or chaos or property damage or vandalism. It will not happen here, and you will be held accountable. So if you want to protest, this is a great place to protest. If you want to do that, go to California.
Don't say that, Spencer. But I understand what he's saying. And
protest peacefully.
And I think that it behooves the governor of every state and to say, don't do it here. We don't want that here. You said that the Texas governor's already called in the National Guard. What he's saying is the same thing. Hey, don't even think about it. This is what we're going to do.
It's the be peaceful part, right?
Sure.
Be peaceful. You can march down the street, maybe without the blocking traffic. But you can have peaceful protest. It's when it starts to turn violent, right? When you're setting cars on fire, when you're looting stores. Those are all things that are out of bounds.
And another thing that's happened here that's really caused some concern between the two jurisdictions, federal and state, is protesting federal agents is one thing, but getting in their way and disallowing them from doing their job. So if ICE agents are doing something, they're arresting people, you can say, hey, you're wrong, you shouldn't do that. But if you're doing something to prevent that or to circumvent that or to stand in their way in any way, I think creates another problem. And that's when peaceful protest becomes something more than that. And again, we see the looters and we see people that are destroying property, and it's been a lot of that's occurred in California. My take on that is those aren't necessarily people that care about the protest, care about the heart of the protest.
Right, they're taking advantage of some chaos.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of the fact that they can go break a window in a store because there's so much chaos and other things going on. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we've hammered this protest thing pretty well this week. Hopefully next week when we start week 2 of the show,
we'll have something else.
The protests are water under the bridge. Not likely. When we come back, we're going to talk about something we haven't talked about for a while, but I think it's really interesting because there's a little bit of an update on this, and that is the concept of birthright citizenship. Stay with us.
Jeff Kaplan.
His Minute of News is great. It's always entertaining.
I listen to Jeff Kaplan every day.
He gives you important news and traffic and the familiar voice that helps you enjoy the ride home.
I really like Jeff's Minute of News. He's calm and he's balanced.
I really enjoy driving home and just listening to what he's got to say.
Jeff Kaplan gets me home every day.
Join the community that relies on Jeff Kaplan. He has you covered. Afternoons from 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
If you're ready to buy a home or sell a home and you're worried about the current real estate market because of what you've heard from some of your friends or family, well, we're here to tell you that you really shouldn't be worried because now is a great time to buy and sell with our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Omada Real Estate.
And here's why. Buyers have more options due to increased inventory, which gives them the power to negotiate for repairs, interest rate buy-downs, and closing cost assistance. While at the same time, sellers are still getting top dollar for their homes, with home values that are higher today than ever before. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, the current real estate market presents a win-win opportunity for both buyers and sellers.
But you still do want to make sure that you're working with a team of real estate experts you can trust that can get you some great results. And that's our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
They have helped thousands of Salt Lake City homeowners, and they're ready to help you. To get started, just go to thesternteam.com. That's thesternteam.com, or Google The Stern Team.
Dive into 2025's best family fun at the Ute Stampede Rodeo with Extreme Bulls. The Ute Stampede is Utah's best family entertainment, honoring the rich heritage and the spirit of the West. 3 nights of PRCA rodeo, Flying U rodeo, live music, food carnivals, and plenty of rodeo showmanship. Experience gold medal competition topped off with huge prize money. Witness epic battles of man versus beast. Wednesday, July 9th with Extreme Bulls. Special package pricing available. Visit UtestampedeRodeo.com.
I am down 50 pounds in 11 weeks, and this program works. The pounds melt off. It's amazing.
I let go of 50 pounds. It felt unreal. I was so proud of myself.
Get in the best shape of your life with Soda Weight Loss.
Just 3 weeks in, and pounds are dropping off very quickly. I am down 26 pounds in 3 weeks.
Summer is right around the corner.
Your summer body starts right here because Soda's summer savings are on.
Every single day, Soda Weight Loss is helping people let go of the weight without drugs, without hunger, and the weight stays off.
I tried other things, came to soda, just amazing.
I started on soda 8 months ago, and I have released 80 pounds now.
Summer savings, stunning results, only at Soda Weight Loss. Get started now at sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com.
Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
This is Secret Clinical dominating extra stinky stress sweat. And this is regular deodorant. Secret Clinical in a heat wave. Oh, what a beautiful day. This is regular deodorant. Ugh, I can't. Secret Clinical with workout sweat. Let's run another marathon. And regular deodorant. How much more? Secret is the GOAT. Because nothing fights sweat better. Stay fresher under pressure.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. No, we're not one of the big guys. Truth is, we don't want to be. If you're over 50, Big Wireless probably has you paying for more data than you might need. You could be throwing away thousands over a lifetime. We're not here to be the biggest. We're here to bring you something we believe is better. Our plans start at just $20. You'll get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto-pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
Emergency traffic brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion. Still seeing major delays northbound I-15 in Linden and Orem. Those delays starting just after Orem Center Street and go all the way up to about 1600 north in Linden. The left lane at HOV lane are blocked, or the left shoulder in the HOV lane are blocked in 1600 north in Linden. As you approach there, as officials still work to clean up a crash there. Wasatch Front businesses and property managers, Go Pave Utah provides all asphalt repairs for your parking. For patching and paving along the Wasatch Front, contact Go Pave Utah. GoPaveUtah.com. Verl Johansson in the KSL Traffic Center.
Nothing says summer like double rewards on your Mountain America Rewards credit card. Get 2 times the points on everything from gas and groceries to travel and home projects. Now through July 31st, 2025. It's the perfect way to stretch your dollar and make summer doubly rewarding. Apply for your Mountain America Rewards credit card at macu.com/double. Loans on approved credit. Offer can change or be withdrawn at any time. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply.
Any Hour Services can make sure your AC keeps you cool this summer. Whether you need a tune-up, repair, or just a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
The new Inside Sources.
You know, after the Civil War, the United States amended the Constitution and added the 14th Amendment. And a lot of us, especially us attorneys, think of the 14th Amendment as saying that states can't do anything that would usurp the due process provisions that the United States government has already put in place regarding the deprivation of life, liberty, or property, and that people within the states have those same rights as the federal government implies. But the first sentence of the 14th Amendment is something most people don't even think about. And that's this whole birthright citizenship. And what it says is this. It's a very simple sentence. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That seems to be fairly clear, Holly. If you're born here, you're a citizen here. Now, the administration has taken that to say, well, that's great, and we're not trying to necessarily set that over, but what if you're born here to a person who's here illegally? Did the framers of this particular constitutional amendment and the people who voted that in really take that into account? You know what I mean? And say, well, okay, if you're born here, that's great. But what if your mom and dad are here illegally in the first place,
or even on a temporary visa? So that is the question in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, and we're really lucky to have with us Kelsey Dallas from the Deseret News for one more day. Welcome, Kelsey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, can you explain to us, first of all, you're an expert on the Supreme Court. Tell us where you're going tomorrow.
I am starting a new job tomorrow as managing editor of SCOTUS blog. That site name might sound familiar to Supreme Court watchers out there. SCOTUS blog provides regular coverage of the Supreme Court and live blogs on decision days.
Awesome. So a real expert, and we're so happy to have you. Can you break down a little bit the case that's in front of the U.S. Supreme Court that deals with birthright citizenship?
Yeah, this is a big one, and it was a surprising add to the Supreme Court's 2024-25 term. They squeezed in oral arguments in mid-May after when the oral argument schedule was supposed to have ended. And what's interesting is that the justices did not take up the overall question of birthright citizenship. They were looking at this broader question about what happens when a lower court thinks that an executive order is unconstitutional or needs to be put on hold for some other reason. And so they were really asking, was it appropriate for the lower courts to not allow these birthright citizenship instructions for the administration to go into effect? During oral arguments in May, the justices did talk about what you all were talking about sort of what that constitutional amendment said, but it's possible that the ruling will just be about the activities of lower courts rather than the overall concept.
And it's a problem, isn't it, Kelsey, when you have 50 states and you have 50 different federal courts? Because if a federal court judge in one state finds that a federal provision or federal administrative order or something like that is unconstitutional, other states are kind of going, well, does that apply to us or not? And isn't that kind of what the Supreme Court's looking at here? A court in some state decides to issue an injunction with respect to this executive order, and does that mean that that injunction is nationwide?
Yeah, the Supreme Court is considering what's called a universal injunction or a national injunction. They've become more common in the past 2 decades or so as executive orders in general have become more common. It's a situation where a judge in a district court or circuit court is putting a policy on hold nationwide, and the Trump administration is saying, we don't think that's an appropriate move. You should only be able to put the order on hold with regard to the people or regions that are trying to challenge it. It's tricky, though, when you look at something like the birthright citizenship order. What would that look like to take effect in only part of the country? Like, where if you cross a state line, yes, you are a U.S. citizen, but if you stayed in this other state, no, you aren't. And so part of the debate in the Supreme Court is like, aren't there certain situations where a nationwide injunction is the only way to sort of make sense of a policy proposal?
No, you're exactly right, Kelsey, and that's just what I was thinking. So a judge in one state issues an order and enjoins the law. Does it make sense that that applies to the nation as a whole, or do we want to have 50 potentially different decisions? Right. And I don't, like you said, so in Utah, you're born here, you're a citizen, but if you go to Idaho, you're not. I mean, that's really one of the question at its core that the Supreme Court's trying to deal with here. You called it a national, what was the word you used, injunction or universal injunction? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, national or universal injunction. Yeah, there is an opposite case, though, where you say a district judge operating in Utah, for example, was not meant to have the power to sort of put this entire plan on hold everywhere. And what was kind of interesting was the birthright citizenship order was an odd order for this to come to the Supreme Court on, because there are other orders where you could actually understand a little better how one state could operate with it and other states could not. It's just with giving like birth and citizenship, it's just very hard to picture hospital to hospital having to have different regulations.
Right, and I was thinking of that as well. I think what that ends up setting up, if the Supreme Court decides that it is not going to be a universal injunction, but it would be regional, what you're going to see, I think, is pregnant women going to certain states, right, to have babies. So you're going to have a real influx in some states where they would be U.S. citizens, can get a passport, right, because they were born in the quote unquote right state. Let me ask you this question. So this seems to be narrowly focused on the injunctions. Is there a case or an opportunity that you foresee in the near future, the next term potentially, where they're actually address the issue of the 14th Amendment?
Yes, because anytime a case like this is being heard on an emergency basis, it will continue to work its way through the courts with the broader question about whether the birthright citizenship order is constitutional. Now, I noted in my coverage from oral arguments that the Supreme Court does have the authority to say, we are going to take up that constitutional question right now. Like, forget this injunction-specific question. We're going to rule on the order overall. But they might pause and say, we're actually going to brief this a little further and not rule on it until the fall. So there are many different possibilities ahead, but it certainly is possible that the Supreme Court, either in the near future or later in the 2025-26 term, will look at the order and its constitutionality.
So from the article, I can see that the arguments were sometime toward the middle or late May. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it was the 15th.
And what did... I mean, the legal experts can always read the tea leaves here, but what could we glean from the arguments and the comments of the justices themselves as to which way they may or may not be leaning?
Well, the argument session was a bit surprising in the sense that many justices before had expressed displeasure with these universal injunctions, being unhappy with how often an order has been put on hold. But during the arguments about the birthright citizenship order, it was actually the government attorney who was arguing against injunction who faced the tougher questions. You had more conservative justices like Alito or Kavanaugh seeming to imply that the administration's plan to get rid of these injunctions wasn't actually going to change things practically, maybe didn't make sense. And so there were a lot of Supreme Court watchers reacting to the arguments like, wow, we didn't expect the Attorney General to face such a tough grilling. Now, that doesn't mean that the ultimate ruling will definitely be against the administration. It was just a notable vibe to pick up on during the arguments.
Thank you
very
so much,
Kelsey. Yeah, that was Kelsey Dallas from the Deseret News. And when we come back after the break, we're going to stay with someone from the Deseret News. That's Jay Evenson. He joined us a couple days ago to talk to us about some things going on in Bangladesh, but he also touched on something from Ukraine, and he's got a really interesting piece about how what's happening in Ukraine has redefined how warfare is conducted in this world. We'll be right back.
10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Amanda Dixon. KSL's top story: attendance at Salt Lake Bees games is down 13% since they moved into their new stadium in Daybreak. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has details.
That's based on attendance numbers through June 6th last year at Smith's Ballpark versus this year. There's a wide array of potential reasons for this, but fans on social media have been particularly vocal about things like higher ticket prices and how far away the new stadium is from the center of the Salt Lake Valley. A spokesperson for the Larry H. Miller Company tells the Salt Lake Tribune they haven't been super focused on promotion so far this year, but there will be more opportunities for discounts coming this summer.
The discounts include a last-minute ticket text line and a $30 monthly subscription that'll get you into 3 games a month. Our top national story this hour from ABC News: Texas Governor Greg Abbott says he is sending the National Guard to San Antonio ahead of a large protest planned this evening. He posted on X, quote, "The Texas National Guard will use every tool and strategy to help law enforcement maintain order." The San Antonio Police Department has confirmed the troops' deployment. Utah safety officials are sounding the alarm about drowsy driving. They say there are nearly 900 crashes each year in the state caused by drowsy driving. There are a couple of times when most of those crashes happen. The hot times seem to be between 6 and 7 in the morning and then around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 147 right now. We're at 43,013. Coming up, above normal temperatures are going to stick around for a while. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 10:32.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Behold, 'tis I, Queen Trustworth, sentinel for seniors amongst the Knights of Scamalot, here to give thee warning. Scams and fraud are on the rise in Utah, and seniors are especially under siege. Be wary of unsolicited texts, phone calls, and salespeople asking for personal or financial information, and never send money to someone thou hast only met online. If thou hast doubts, talk to someone thou trusteth and get educated at scams.utah.gov.
You're stubborn. Okay, be stubborn. Don't admit you have hearing issues, but they won't go away. You'll just suffer with them. But you don't have to suffer. My Hearing Centers will fit you with a high-tech hearing aid that's powerful and barely noticeable. So if you're suffering from hearing loss, or if you have a hearing aid but it's 3 years or older, you owe it to yourself to schedule a free consultation at My Hearing Centers by calling 801-438-7058. With locations from Ogden to St. George, be smart, not stubborn, with My Hearing Centers.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. For years now, I've been telling you about Connecticut soft water systems that use 2/3 less salt than the others. But I've never told you exactly how they do that. Well, there are several ways, so consider this as part one in a series. Most of the softeners out there use a finicky, hard-to-adjust computer to guesstimate when to cycle, and it errs on the side of cycling too often, which means it'll burn through way too much salt way too soon. Connecticut is different. It has an all-mechanical system that measures the water precisely. No computer, no guesstimating, so it cycles only when needed. The result, Connecticut delivers perfectly soft water 24/7 using minimal salt. So why not save your lower back from carrying the 3 bags of salt when all you need is 1? Call Northern Utah's authorized Connecticut dealer, Connecticut Quality Water Systems of Salt Lake. Call them now, 801-576-8600, or log on to softwaterutah.com and tell them Doug sent you.
It's back, and you will be too. June 12th through the 14th at the Cache County Fairgrounds, it's the Summerfest Arts Fair, celebrating its 41st anniversary, featuring local and regional artists and musicians. You're going to love this, like you loved it before. Art, painting, ceramics, music, food. Summerfest Arts Fair is loaded with all the things that you and the family love the most. Then get set for an amazing lineup of musicians, featuring headliners the Lonely Hearts Club Band, The Last Wild Buffalo, and Music City Groove. Plus, enjoy other regional musicians like the Highline Drifters and Fry Pan Band. This is where local, regional, and national artists come together to celebrate the arts. So discover 165 artist booths, 38 performing groups, and 30 food vendors, along with a plein air art competition. Get the full details at logansummerfest.org. logansummerfest.org. Summerfest Arts Fair, June 12th through the 14th at the Cache County Fairgrounds.
We have emergency traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion. And back to you, Burl.
Traffic still crawling along in northbound I-15 in Linden and Orem. We've got crews still working to clean up a crash on the left shoulder and blocking the HOV lane in Linden just after the 1600 North exit. Those delays start all the way back, though, in Orem just after the Center Street on-ramp. Again, just traffic is crawling along as it moves through this section of northbound I-15 between Orem and Linden. Jordan Valley Water says we're using about 12% more water than last year, even though we don't need to. Do your part. Water 1 day less each week. Burl Johansson in the KSL Traffic Center.
It's going to be 10 degrees or more above normal for the rest of the week. 96 today, 94 tomorrow, 95 on Friday. Let me check and see where we are right now. Downtown, it's 80 degrees. I'm Amanda Dixon from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
So, Greg, one of the things that we have talked about a little bit, but we are really excited to talk about some more, is the change in warfare, and that's the use of drones. That, I told my kids when they were younger and growing up that playing video games would not get them a real job, and I was not correct.
You're wrong. Yes, I think because that's how you learn to fly a drone, apparently.
Right? Apparently. I mean, it's such a skill, apparently, and one that was just used. We are really lucky to have in studio again Jay Evenson, the opinion editor of the Deseret News, and he wrote a piece on how these drones are changing warfare. Tell us about that.
Well, we all know how Ukraine attacked Russia in bases well within the interior of that country on June 1st. I mean, we've used words like audacious to talk about it, and I don't think there are words strong enough to really explain what they did, but they smuggled in small drones on storage compartments being driven by truck drivers who had no idea what they were doing. These were delivered at various air bases, and then at the right time, they emerged and they destroyed what I've seen reported as about 10% of Russia's top-notch bomber planes. But what this did, more than anything, really, if you're paying attention, was pinpoint how vulnerable we are in the United States to that type of thing. Because once something like that has been used in warfare, it's going to be used by all sides. And we have plenty of bases in our interior here, including Hill Air Force Base just up the road, where a lot of our fighter planes and other aircraft that are very valuable are just sitting ducks,
right,
and are vulnerable to this type of an attack.
And what does that say? I mean, what do we do in this country to prevent that? Because what we're seeing, there's one quote I see here that we're using $2 million missiles to shoot down $10,000 drones. I mean, is the United States just not prepared for what could be a drone attack? Is that what we're learning?
I've been spending a lot of time trying to study what the experts are saying on this, and actually, yes, that's what they're saying. We are talking the talk. I mean, everybody in the military is aware of what's happening and aware that we have this new type of warfare. The problem is we're always trying to fight the last war, right? And that goes back to before World War I, when there was the argument over whether to use horses still or to use mechanized, tanks and aircraft and that kind of thing. So it has to do with the bureaucracy of the Defense Department, with the budget, the enormous budget. I think it's about $800 to $900 billion, and what that's being used on. And there's a publication called Breaking Defense, and I was reading them this morning. They said, on paper, the Defense Department has made defeating small drones an imperative since 2016, but in reality, the response has been slow and inadequate. The small drone threat is already here, and it will only intensify.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting, I come from a military family. My dad was a fighter pilot. I have a brother that was a fighter pilot, and former Utah Representative Chris Stewart was a fighter pilot for 14 years, I think, and the Deseret News actually interviewed him as well, and he said just what you're saying. We're not ready. I mean, we can know that there are things available out there, that drones can come, and now we know for sure that they can take out a big plane. And some of the numbers I saw, it might be $10,000 in the U.S., but Ukraine was able to build these for $400, right? That we're talking about, it's just not even apples to oranges anymore, right? If you've got a drone that can fly over Hill Air Force Base and take out a whole fleet.
And they're calling this asymmetrical warfare, because you got $400 drones and missiles that cost millions of dollars trying to get them out of the air. And you can buy a lot of drones for $2 million.
Right. And even the size difference, I'm just imagining in my head, right, that trying to pinpoint a drone, they're not tiny like you fly over your local backyard, right, but they're pretty small. So being able to be so precise with a missile to take them down seems...
Right. And it's going to get worse because now we've got AI in the mix. And we're working toward a time when these drones will be completely autonomous, flown by themselves by AI, able to react to conditions instantly, where a remote pilot probably isn't that dexterous. I mean, they're very talented in what they're doing. But if these things can think and move on their own, it's a frightening thought for future warfare. And it allows a smaller country like Ukraine to suddenly be a much larger country militarily because they have that threat.
And what happened recently that you mentioned, I think it was June 1st, is that these drones were used to literally destroy bombers the size of our B-52s here in the United States, which when you say a small drone, it's got to be at least big enough to carry some payload that will have that impact.
I wished I had a real idea of the exact size and how, and the reporting is still kind of vague on this, and I can kind of understand that. I think Ukraine doesn't want to tell everything that it did.
Of course.
It wants to still have this surprise weapon in its arsenal. But I'm sure the U.S. military is aware of what they did and how they did it, and there are ways that you can protect against drones, or certainly ways that you can hide your fleet of aircraft rather than just leaving them out in the open. But I think it's something that we need to turn our attention to.
So one of the things you mentioned in your article is the idea that maybe this isn't as new and innovative as we might think. You can go all the way back to, I don't know, the Trojan War.
Exactly. There always have been innovations in warfare, or surprise, the element of surprise. I mean, we think about it, even the 9/11 attacks were certainly qualified as that. I mean, the ISIS, or it was Al-Qaeda, I guess, at that time, spent 2 years learning how to fly jet aircraft and mingling in and among Americans until it was time for them to attack. So that is certainly not new. But what is new is the pace of technology and the drones and artificial intelligence, which is a whole new concept.
And it seems like, Jay, that there has to be some technology that maybe we don't even comprehend right now that a military can use to stop a drone attack. And I'm thinking a giant net. I mean, I know that's ridiculous, but I mean, we're talking about something small and you're talking about shooting it out of the air. I mean, it's almost impossible. The technology has to be off the charts. Yeah. And when you've got, I think Russia sent 500 drones in a couple days later or something like that.
Into Ukraine, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do in a case like that? The technology, I don't know, I think about the force field or something. That there's got to be something maybe we haven't even thought about. That our military's got to be working on that right now.
Whenever there's a new technology in war, there's always a new antidote for it that comes up. If you can use AI to pilot drones, you can certainly use AI to try to intercept them. And it's just warfare on an incredibly fast scale that we're not used to.
Yeah, and drones are unmanned, so there's no risk, there's no death for the
until
operator.
The payload is dropped.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, the country that's deploying the drones, they've got somebody sitting in a lab with his Xbox device and flying the thing, and I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean? They're
not by much.
Right, yeah. I mean, and
I saw pictures, VR headsets, on the Ukrainian soldiers who are operating the drones from well inside Ukraine, not in the danger zone in Russia.
The other problem we have here, too, is that many of our large bases are in highly populated areas, and we have to be very careful to avoid collateral damage when we're trying to shoot down these drones, should there be an attack.
Yeah, interesting article. Hey, Jay, we had you in on Monday to talk about Bangladesh. Can we have you back next week? We've had a lot of people say we need to follow up. We need to follow up with where you were going with that.
Well, that makes me feel good, and thank you. Yes, I'd love to be here on Monday.
Okay, we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
All right.
When we come back after the break, Holly is currently in the middle of renovating her home. But is that a smart thing to do? It's a smart thing to do, Holly. But is it a smart thing to do if you're also going to sell your home in the next few years? Is it something financially worthwhile? Let's ask the Stern team of Amada Real Estate next.
If you're ready to buy a home or sell a home and you're worried about the current real estate market because of what you've heard from some of your friends or family, well,
We're here to tell you that you really shouldn't be worried because now is a great time to buy and sell with our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Omada Real Estate.
And here's why. Buyers have more options due to increased inventory, which gives them the power to negotiate for repairs, interest rate buy-downs, and closing cost assistance. While at the same time, sellers are still getting top dollar for their homes, with home values that are higher today than ever before. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, the current real estate market presents a win-win opportunity for both buyers and sellers.
But you still do want to make sure that you're working with a team of real estate experts you can trust that can get you some great results. And that's our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Omada Real Estate.
They have helped thousands of Salt Lake City homeowners, and they're ready to help you. To get started, just go to thesternteam.com. That's thesternteam.com, or Google The Stern Team.
Sign up for KSL Text Alerts. Get breaking news and traffic updates by texting the word news to 57500. Want access to exclusive contests? Text contest to 57500. Jazz fans, text the word jazz for breaking jazz updates. And Cougar fans, text BYU to 57500 for the latest on the Cougars. Message and data rates may apply.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger. Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. No, we're not one of the big guys. Truth is, we don't want to be. If you're over 50, Big Wireless probably has you paying for more data than you might need. You could be throwing away thousands over a lifetime. We're not here to be the biggest. We're here to bring you something we believe is better. Our plans start at just $20. You'll get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
Emergency traffic brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion. Traffic still just crawling along northbound I-15 in Orem and Linden. Right now the delays are getting a little bit shorter. They don't start to set in until about 800 north now, and they continue all the way through 1600 north in Linden. Again, that left shoulder and the HOV lane still blocked as crews continue to clean up that crash, but the delays are getting shorter though. We are seeing traffic start to move through a little bit better through that area. Again, they set in about 800 north in Orem and then continue all the way through 1600 north in Linden. Wasatch Front businesses and property managers, Go Pave Utah provides all asphalt repairs for your parking. For patching and paving along the Wasatch Front, contact Go Pave Utah. GoPaveUtah.com. Verl Johansson in the KSL Traffic Center.
Looking for reliable home services you can actually count on? I've got just the team for you. Mountain Home Services. They've been serving Utah since 1954 with honest, upfront pricing and zero hidden fees. Plus, they back every job with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. With summer heating up, now's the time to get your AC in shape. Mountain Home Services delivers fast, expert air conditioning service to keep your home cool and comfortable. And don't forget, they also handle electrical and plumbing work with the same trusted care. And here's the best part. KSL listeners get exclusive limited-time specials, but you have to call and ask. These deals won't last, so don't miss your chance to save. Call 801-543-2222 today and tell them KSL sent you. That's 801-543-2222 or visit mountainhomeservices.com. Get the service you need and the deal you deserve.
If you've got a gas-powered engine, keep it running like new at every fill-up. Stable in-season protection is your engine's preventative medicine, cleaning and protecting the entire fuel system in season. In outdoor power equipment, prevent gum and varnish buildup that could cause a rough or non-running engine. For cars and trucks, increase fuel efficiency and power by removing deposits, ensuring your engine's long-term health. Stable outperforms the competition in independent lab testing. So at every fill-up, start with Stable.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. No, we're not one of the big guys. Truth is, we don't want to be. If you're over 50, Big Wireless probably has you paying for more data than you might need. You could be throwing away thousands over a lifetime. we're not here to be the biggest. We're here to bring you something we believe is better. Our plans start at just $20. You'll get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
Inside Sources.
You know, Holly, I have a neighbor up in the area I live in, the Ogden Valley, who they were trying to sell their home a couple of months ago, and they just weren't getting any love on it, and it was dated a little bit, and so they decided to redo all of their bathrooms, and they're putting like $100,000 into these bathrooms. There are three of them with heated floors and heated towel racks and things that I only dream about, and spending a lot of money. And it occurred to me, rather than do that, would it make more sense to just reduce the price of their house by $100,000? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
is it really an investment that's worth doing? And you're doing some upgrades on your house, not necessarily to sell it,
Well,
but you
we're
have to
thinking
think
of
about that.
right?
Yeah.
So my husband and I are at the point where we're thinking of downsizing, right? So our family's raised, and most of them have moved out, not all of them, but but as I've done that, what I've been reminded of is when I've sold homes in the past, I did all this work right before I sold it, and it's like I don't even get to enjoy it.
I know.
But,
I know.
but
all of a sudden,
right?
your house is beautiful. You're like, well, what am I doing here? Let's bring in Russell Fawcett, owner of the Stern team of Omada Real Estate. Russell, thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
And tell us what you would advise a homeowner in the weeks or months prior to selling their home in terms of investing in sort of fix-ups of the home. I mean, there are probably some things that are maybe
Upgrade,
a must.
maybe,
Yeah.
What are the must-dos, and what are the, you're probably not going to get your money worth out of this one.
Yeah, so really we kind of look at the overall goal of what they're trying to accomplish. And, you mentioned in the weeks or months leading up to it, there's a lot of things that honestly come down to a little bit of elbow grease that I would recommend before ever spending an actual dollar into the home. So
Really?
What do I mean? What do I mean by that? Like, clean the house. The worst thing, honestly, when I'm showing homes is to go into a home that's dirty, and people automatically turn their nose up. So it's like, let's get that magic eraser and let's just wipe it clean and see what we're working with. The other thing I would say is, if you're moving, so let's start packing and depersonalize the home. And so again, we're making it show a little bit bigger. Then we start into, okay, now what do we need to do? So I would say the number after that, we want to make sure we go in and fix anything that's broken. So any deferred maintenance that you have, we're going to get that done. And then, now we look at the cosmetics of, what does the yard look like? Do we need to just put some fresh bark down? Do we need to mow the lawn? And then, our next one would be paint. Do we have any rooms that are you painted bubblegum pink for someone,
Right.
or things like that, right? It's actually, there are very, very few repairs that you can, or upgrades that you can do that you're going to get a one-to-one return, meaning I spend $1, I get $1 back. And so, yes, if something is, hasn't been updated since 1950, we probably want to replace that carpet, maybe replace the flooring, but we really, really have to look at the numbers and the comparable sales before we start going into the major upgrades of the kitchens and the bathrooms, or knocking out a wall, things like that.
Is there also the idea, Russell, that and this, I'm going back to my neighbors here, who they have these kitchen counters that are sort of outdated, and they've been advised to paint or restand or change them. But to what extent do we say, well, the new homeowner may want to do their own upgrades? They may not like what you do, and so maybe reducing the price to make it a more palatable house and giving them a few extra dollars to do their own upgrades. Is there a time to do that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. So it really comes down to a little bit of, kind of the price ranges. As if we're working with, say, more of a first-time home buyer home, we want to do as much as we can to make that home where someone they can just move in and not have to worry about any changes. As we get into some of the higher-end markets, we're going to either have to redo everything and hope that the next buyer likes it, or honestly, in those, kind of the higher end luxury market is when we really have to evaluate of, like, someone might come in and just rip this out anyways. So let's reduce the price to attract more buyers than trying to go all out and actually try to figure out what that buyer might like. I will say as well, some of the upgrades and things that people don't think about are the roof or the furnace, the air conditioner. I've had more deals cancel off of deferred maintenance than I have off of someone just not liking the carpet.
Wow, interesting.
Russell, let me ask you another question. Right now, the Utah market has gone through the roof, and home prices have gone up a lot, which is great for homeowners. But recently, with the volatility of the economy and with interest rates climbing up a little bit where some people are a little uncomfortable, is it hard to sell a home right now in Utah, or is it still a pretty good market?
So as long as you are priced correctly, you'll still sell. So we still do have enough buyers out there that homes will move if they're priced right. But we are on the brink of affordability, right? That tipping point. So as soon as you become the home that is not the most affordable home or the nicest home, your home will sit. So our average days on market, though, so this is just average, we're inching up towards 60 days.
Oh,
so
wow.
it used to be, 2 weeks and your home is sold. So I would say as well, if you're a seller, also be more patient, because the days of selling in a week, unless honestly you've underpriced your home, have kind of gone past. We're now expecting it to take 30 days or 60 days before your home's going to sell.
Is that still the same as we head into summer, which I understand is typically the hottest season for home buyers?
Yeah, and that's actually, this year has been honestly one of the slower years for home sales. We didn't see that normal spring spike that we normally see. Now it's picked up, it's more busy than it was in January and February, but it is definitely slower than, we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years.
Russell, what are some of the more hot areas along the Wasatch Front where homes are selling better than others?
Yeah, really, it's anywhere that so a lot of the areas where you have a lot of new construction, you're competing with the builders. And so some of those areas are a little bit slower. The hot areas, honestly, as long as you're priced right, your home could be hot. But your first-time home buyer areas, or, honestly, Taylorsville, West Valley, we're seeing homes move rather quickly. But also there's pockets on, east side as well that are very coveted neighborhoods that people, the homes will sell quickly as well.
Well, interesting. Russell, thank you for joining us. That's Russell Fawcett, owner of the Stern Team and Omada Real Estate. If you want to learn your home's true value in 30 seconds, just visit sternteam.com to find out more. And Holly, did you change your opinion of what you're going to do here? Or are you still moving forward with your renovations?
Well, we'll still move forward, but I changing some of my ideas, right? But I already moved a wall, so.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, and we had replaced our roof siding and a whole bunch of other things, and then we were thinking of selling our house, and I'm like, why did we do all that stuff?
Yeah,
but
we
our
did
realtor,
our roof.
We didn't end up selling or listing, but the realtor we visited said, this is great. All this stuff you did is amazing.
I think for me, my biggest thing is I've got to declutter. So our house was big enough and we've been there for more than 20 years. Stuff just accumulates and it just grows and grows and grows and grows, right? So that's my one big project.
When we come back after the break, a man who has been previously on Utah's death row for 4 decades to be exact, is now preparing for a new trial. Let's discuss the details after this.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jessica Lowell. KSL's top story this hour. A second person has been gored in Yellowstone Park this year. KSL News Radio's Randall Jepson has more.
The latest case happened in the Geyser Basin near Old Faithful. Park rangers say a group got too close to the bison. It charged, And a guy from New Jersey ended up needing treatment from what they are saying are minor injuries. They aren't releasing many other details than that, saying it's still under investigation. Rangers say stay at least 25 yards away from bison and keep 100 yards away from wolves and bears.
The first case of someone getting gored this year in Yellowstone happened in early May at Lake Village. Our top national story this hour, President Trump and California Governor Gavin Newsom are continuing their tit for tat as protests against ICE continue to grip Los Angeles and spread across the country.
President Trump is continuing to criticize California Governor Gavin Newsom, posting on social media Wednesday morning that the governor is, quote, incompetent. The president, in a new podcast interview with the New York Post, again left open the possibility of Newsom being arrested, with the president's reason for that being he's not doing a good job. Newsom, meanwhile, on Tuesday night, slammed the president.
He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety.
Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
And breaking news on KSL News Radio, we're learning that the Beach Boys' Brian Wilson has died. Wilson's family made the announcement on Instagram just minutes ago. Pitchfork reports that in 2024, it was revealed that Wilson was living with a neurocognitive disorder. Wilson was 82 years old. And your money at this moment, Dow up 141 points. Coming up, hot temperatures sticking around. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 11:02.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Now there's a new way to take charge of your blood sugar. Introducing New Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula from the makers of the nation's best-selling garlic supplement. New Garlic helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels with clinically supported levels of garlic, plus a custom blend of vitamins and minerals, and it's odor-free. Take charge of your blood sugar with New Garlic Healthy Blood Sugar Formula. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Use as directed.
Do you hear that? Asthma triggers are everywhere, from dust mites, pet dander, and pollen, to smog and smoke. An asthma attack can strike anywhere, anytime. Be prepared with quick-acting Primatene Mist. Clinically proven to open airways quickly. It's the #1 FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. Primatene Mist. Breathe easy again. Use as directed.
Spring cleaning season is wrapping up, but it's not too late to give your carpets the ultimate refresh. Whether it's dirt from foot traffic, pet stains, or just the wear and tear of everyday life, Zero-Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning can bring your floors back to life. Right now, get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for just $129 when you mention KSL. Zero-Res uses a patented cleaning process with no soaps, no harsh chemicals, and no residue, so your carpets dry faster and stay cleaner longer. That means a healthier home for your family, pets, and guests. Don't wait until the craziness of summer is in full swing. Make your home feel fresh, clean, and truly ready for the season ahead. And get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for just $129 when you mention KSL. Call Zero-Res or schedule online at Zerores.com to get your home cleaned the right way. Zerores.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion. Here's Earl Johansson.
Well, Jess, we still got major delays at northbound I-15 in Linden as officials still got that left shoulder and left HOV lane closed as they clean up a crash. Traffic is slowing down, starting at about 800 north in Orem, all the way up to 1600 north in Linden. Once you get past that point, though, things start to open up a little bit more. You speed back up to normal freeway speeds, especially once you get to that Pleasant Grove exit. Celebrate freedom in Paris, Idaho. 4th of July, Chuck Wagon breakfast and parade. On the 5th, a 5K run, junior rodeo, craft vendor fair, and free concert. Visit bearlake.org for details. Earl Johansson in the KSL Traffic Center.
Some chances of isolated thunderstorms in the northernmost parts of Utah today. Highs will stay in the 90s for the next 5 or so days with mostly dry skies, though. Right now it's 80 degrees and mostly cloudy. I'm Jessica Lowell from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
40 years ago, Douglas Carter was found guilty of aggravated murder, a capital offense punishable by the death penalty by a jury in 1985. But recently, the Utah Supreme Court ruled, as recently as May, that there were some serious constitutional violations in his previous trial, meriting a second jury trial. Now, this is a 40-year-old trial, Holly, and the judges said, and they affirmed a district court judge who said he didn't get a fair trial, in part because what they're saying is that there was no physical evidence that tied him to the crime scene, and that two of the witnesses who testified kind of corroborated portions of his confession were being paid by prosecutors, and that his attorneys were not informed of that. They had the right to know that. They had the right to be able to cross-examine these witnesses. The whole Constitution says you have the right to confront and cross-examine the witnesses against you, which means, if you understand the Due Process Clause, you need to understand what they've said. You have to have full disclosure by the state.
Well, is it legal to pay them?
So, good question. It's not legal to pay them for their testimony. What sometimes prosecutors do, let's say you have people who are here, they live in another state or something, and you say, look, we need you here for the trial. We're going to pay you we're going to put you up in a house for
something. Okay.
Yeah, or do this, or cancel your vacation, do whatever. I mean, it's questionable when you pay. Even when you're a defense attorney and you find out that a witness has been paid, it's very valuable. I mean, you can question them and cross-examine them about that, because a jury is going to say, well, what really are they getting paid for? You know what I mean?
Right.
But on the other hand, I was a prosecutor for 8 years, and it's hard to prosecute serious cases without the benefit of witnesses, and we call them snitches, whatever you want to call them.
Ow.
Yeah, I mean it's a colloquial term that I shouldn't use, but the person who's testifying, get a confidential informant, whatever you want to call them, and sometimes they expect something in return for their testimony.
Yeah, look, here's what struck me about this, and you're the legal expert, of course, but this is 40 years past conviction, right? Past his conviction, he was on death row.
Right.
I mean, those are some of the cases I think that makes me think maybe the state shouldn't be involved in executing people. I don't know.
Yeah, although I would say this, and this will sound weird, if this hadn't been a death penalty case, he wouldn't have had his conviction set aside, and I'll tell you why. Because he wouldn't have had these capital attorneys working so hard to find something to do to save his life. If he just pled to a murder or was convicted of a murder and he was doing life in prison, he would do life in prison.
Interesting.
I believe that to be true. Death penalty cases, capital offenses, and I've done them for both sides. I've defended, I've prosecuted, I've done post-conviction work for these cases. It never stops. There are attorneys working on the appeals, working on ways to set aside the verdict constantly, because the end result is so severe. Right. And it goes back to what you said. Maybe we need to rethink the whole capital offense thing. I would say this also. When I heard about this case, and I wasn't involved in it in any substantial way, his conviction is set aside 40 years later. I thought at first, well, maybe that's a fair amount of time. You know what I mean? Do we really want to retry it?
Given time served, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, 40 years is a lot. Of course, we have a law in Utah that provides that if a person is incarcerated wrongfully and their conviction set aside for something like this, they would get paid. It's not astronomical, but 40 years times whatever the number is, like $13,000 a year, would be substantial, but hardly worth spending a year in prison for.
So in this case, he's presumed innocent, and he's going to start this whole process over. Is that right?
Right. And you have to think about this too, Holly, because the Utah County Attorney's Office has really been wrestling with this one. Can they even put the case together? They have to make that decision. They've got it.
All the evidence is 40 years old.
Right.
40 plus.
And the witnesses, are they still around? Can we find them? And so they had to go through a weighing process, and we were sort of all waiting weighing process, going, okay, are they going to recharge the case, or are they going to let him, like you say, time served and move forward? And we haven't even gotten to the question of what happens to him after 40 years. Can he even go back on the street, or is that something that's appropriate? But I think the county attorney's office down there in Utah County, and I know the county attorney, Jeff Gray, is really good, fair man. I mean, I think they took this very seriously and looked at the evidence and said, look, can we prosecute this case, and can we win this case? Because a prosecutor in America has to be able to look themselves in the mirror and say, do I have a reasonable likelihood that I'm going to prevail in this case? Not should I charge it just to cover my tracks or something like that. Can I win this case? Am I reasonably likely to win the case?
And have they made that decision, or are they still in that process?
I think the fact that they are now recharging the case and they've made that decision, it looks like they've made that decision, must mean that they've decided they can. So I think the county attorney's office down there has said, we're going to bring this case forward again, and we're charging him again with this aggravated murder. Now, I would say this also: this district attorney, the county attorney in Utah County, doesn't have to make the decision yet as to whether they're going to pursue this as a death penalty case.
Mm-hmm.
They could still call it an aggravated murder and a capital offense, but Utah law now provides that a person convicted of that particular crime can get life in prison or life in prison without the possibility of parole. So I'm not saying that they're going to pursue this as a death penalty case, but it looks like they're going to pursue it as a capital case, what they call an aggravated murder, so that they would have that option if they decided to exercise it.
Let me ask you this question. So I know you can tell I'm not a legal expert. You can't have double jeopardy, right? So you can't be tried for the same case twice. But because this was set aside, is this like it's just being tried for the first time?
Exactly. So the Supreme Court has said the trial didn't count. He wasn't given a fair trial.
Okay.
And so, yeah, had the jury found him not guilty 40 years ago, and let's say the state found all this new evidence, King's X, double jeopardy, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't exist anymore. There's no way they can retry him. But the Supreme Court said there were some improprieties in the trial that made it unfair, and his conviction wasn't correct. So they basically, it's not a mistrial, but it's similar to that. You know, if you have a mistrial, what you're saying is it didn't happen.
Okay.
So the Supreme Court's saying we're going to start over, and they give the county attorney the ability. And when I was at the DA's office, luckily we never had to look at a 40-year-old case, but we did have to make decisions on cases that had been reversed for some, issues regarding a search and seizure or something like that. You have to weigh it. You have to say, is it worth retrying? Is it worth putting everyone through it again? And are we likely to win?
Right.
I never had to make that decision 40 years after the fact.
That's interesting.
There's another 40-year-old case that I want to talk on briefly that we're running out of time, and that's this Ralph Menzies. This is a case that, again, it sort of tracks my career. Both of these cases occurred about the time I started practicing law in the early 80s. Menzies has been on death row also for 40 years. And he is facing the death penalty, and he had a hearing recently to decide if he's competent to be executed. And I know that sounds kind of weird because
it does sound weird.
Because in America, you can't be executed if you don't appreciate why you're being executed. You have to understand that it is the result of your conduct, that it's a consequence of something you did. Now, that wouldn't mean if you didn't understand it, you would still stay in prison. It's not like the alternative is let him out because he's got some dementia. But what they're saying is he competent to be executed? And a judge recently said, yes, he is. So that case is back on this one happened in 1986. It's actually a year later than the Carter case, but again, 40 years almost to the day from when it happened. And he's one step closer now to his execution because the judge said, yes, he is competent. They had like a 5 or 6 day hearing, and the judge's ruling was really quite involved. I mean, the judge took a tremendous amount of time, as he was required to do, a good judge and a former prosecutor, but a very fair man, looked at this case and said, I think that he's competent based on what the experts have said, based on how they've evaluated him and whatnot. So he's back on the path.
Back on death row.
Death row.
Which he still was. But what's the time frame then for him?
So, as you might expect, that decision has now been appealed. So there is no time frame. I don't know whether the Board of Pardons or the Bureau of Prison has started the execution process, but if they did, they might want to consider putting that on hold because it's not likely to occur anytime soon. When we come back after the break, we're going to get off of this macabre subject and talk about what the Department of Justice has said about Trump's discussions about abolishing national monuments. And we're going to have a reaction from someone from a different side after the break.
It's been so important in this news show to hear how the news is impacting you.
Midday.
How this is really going to impact your life or your children's safety or your husband's job. To hear that wow moment from you.
Midday with Maria Shilaos.
I invite you to join us from noon to 3 right here on KSL News Radio.
Imagine waking up every morning with a smile you're proud of. No more hiding, no more pain. Stubbs Dental Implant Center, Utah's Best of State winner for 3 years in a row, has helped thousands of people ditch the dentures and say goodbye to missing or broken teeth. Their expert team specializes in giving you a permanent, natural-looking smile with dental implants that feel and function just like real teeth. With over 2,000 five-star Google reviews, their patients say it best.
Dental implants gave me my life back. I feel confident again. I feel like I can be myself.
There was no way I was getting dentures. Getting dental implants from Stubbs Dental has been the best decision of my life.
Let the expert team at Stubbs Dental help you take the first step to changing your life with dental implants. Schedule your complimentary consultation today, a $350 value, absolutely free. Visit StubbsDental.com today. That's StubbsDental.com. StubbsDental.com.
Your electric bill is going to be higher for summer, but not if you get new windows from Advanced Window Products. State-of-the-art double-pane windows and insulated frames, any style, any color, from a company that's been building them right here in Salt Lake City for 39 years. Not only are you buying local, but you're cutting out the middleman because they're the factory. You save 30, even 40% on your new windows, and you get a lifetime guarantee from a trusted local company. If there's a problem 5 years from now, they come right over and get things straight. And right now, you can save even more. If you call Advanced Windows for a quote, they'll give you an extra $2,500 off on 10 windows or more. Advanced Windows offers buy now, pay later. They have 60-month 0% financing. They always work out affordable payments, plus $2,500 off. So get your new windows for summer. Make the call now, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or you can go to advancedwindows.com.
Traffic on KSL, brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion. Well, good news for northbound travelers. I-15 in Orem. Looks like crews have moved away from the left shoulder. They've reopened the HOV lane. Traffic still moving slowly in Orem as you move from 800 north up to 1600 north, but it looks like those delays are starting to thin out and move away as things are now officially cleared up. Wasatch Front businesses and property managers, GoPave Utah provides all asphalt repairs for your parking. For patching and paving along the Wasatch Front, contact GoPave Utah. GoPaveUtah.com. Burl Johansson in the KSL Traffic Center.
Tim Hughes back again with Greg and Mike at Replenish Landscape Garden Products. It's that time of year when you're looking to make a change in your landscaping, and maybe you're tired of some of those areas that you just end up pulling a lot of weeds out of this time of year. Greg, you've got a lot of answers for that in the form of rocks and bark and so many other things.
That's right. We carry 22 different varieties in our bins here, and they're available to be picked up, or we can deliver them to you.
Mike, there's a reason why professional landscapers and even school districts and others use your products.
Yeah, it's a great proven material. We get a lot of school districts and municipalities that use it as well, and landscapers.
You still have those playground chips too?
We do.
You're going to find it all right here in Murray at 4660 South 200 West. And remember, you can drive right in and pick it up yourself or have it delivered right to your home. Call them at 801-262-5142 or go online at replenishcompost.com. Remember, Replenish. It's good stuff.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with a Capital One Saver card, so let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
And expanded Inside Sources.
In President Trump's first term, he reduced the size of Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante national monuments, calling them a massive land grab. Now, according to a Justice Department advisory opinion, which says it's possible, he could actually revoke those national monuments and make them so they don't even exist anymore.
Just abolish them
I mean,
altogether.
this is something, if you think about the Antiquities Act, which is, 200 years old now, it gives presidents the ability to set aside areas, set aside valuable lands for that have antiquities, that have Native American remnants, that have just anything that
cultural
absolutely they can designate those areas as monuments and protect them. It goes back and forth, and we talked about this earlier when we have one president who says, let's set aside 1.3 million acres for Grand Staircase. Another one who says, well, what about
shrink it?
What about 1.3 acres? Let's make it a little more manageable. We actually had Logan Monson on the show earlier, a representative from that area, who talked to us about his reaction to the news.
It's interesting that it's being talked about again, and we knew it would. We knew that this would be a hot topic in this new Trump administration. People from where I represent support this. They support these kind of decisions, getting rid of monuments and shrinking them down. At this point, what's happened has happened. The monument's there. People are aware that it's there, and they're going to visit. So we really need to find ways to manage this area in a responsible way.
We have joining us this morning Steve Block, legal director of the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance. Steve, what was your reaction when you first heard about the Justice Department's advisory opinion saying that a president could simply set aside these antiquities designations?
Yeah, well, good morning. Not surprised. I think the three of us could probably agree there really isn't a time when President Trump asks for an answer from what he thinks of as his Justice Department that they haven't given it to him. So when he asks a loaded question of, hey, do I have the authority to abolish or dismantle national monuments? Well, of course, the answer was going to be yes. So not surprised, but of course disappointed because we think it's the wrong answer, flies in the face of more than 120 years of precedent and how courts and the federal government and stakeholders have understood the durability of national monument designations.
Steve, let's talk to our listeners, if you don't mind, about the history of the Antiquities Act and how and to what extent it's been challenged. I mean, it does allow a sitting president to designate areas as national monuments, and I know that happens with almost every president. But now people are looking back going, hey, wait a minute, at some point it's getting too big. What is the current state of the law as you understand it?
Sure. Well, so the Antiquities Act of 1906 was passed by Congress, and almost immediately the president at the time, Theodore Roosevelt, designated the Grand Canyon National Monument at over 800,000 acres. So I think some of the maybe false narrative we hear these days is that, the Antiquities Act was always focused on small places and specific objects. But from the get-go, that wasn't how the presidents understood it. And almost immediately we saw the creation of both large and small national monuments. Roosevelt's establishment of the Grand Canyon Monument was challenged, and his authority was upheld. And in fact, every time somebody has challenged a president's use of the Antiquities Act to establish a monument, saying, as for example, Utah did in 1996, that the Grand Staircase was too big or protected objects that the Antiquities Act wasn't meant to protect, those challenges have been rejected by the courts. So the through line is really that every time a president from both parties has used the Antiquities Act, those decisions have been upheld. And, looking at it through the test of time, the four of our 5 national parks in Utah started off as national monuments. And I don't think anybody looks back and says, hey, those were bad ideas.
What are the next steps then with this new advisory? Do you have to wait until the president actually says, okay, I am abolishing these monuments, or is there something you anticipate happening right away?
Well, I think we're thinking about that. There's this kind of legal opinion from the Office of Legal Counsel. Not clear that legal opinion itself can be challenged, though we're looking into it. But I suspect what we're playing is the wait and see game. What's the president going to do, from day one, from even before day one after the election? I think it was a question of when and not if he would attack the Grand Staircase and the Bears Ears National Monuments. But folks on the radio should know that it's not just these 2 monuments. It's the scope and extent of this new opinion from the Trump Justice Department is really sweeping. And it says that Trump has the authority, and again, we think this is wrong, but it says he has the authority to undo any national monument established by any previous president running all the way back to 1906. And what I think you heard from Logan Monson just a minute ago when you played that clip is that folks on the ground really are looking for certainty in how these places are going to be managed.
Right.
And, Utahns are proud of their national monuments. They overwhelmingly say they want to see them remain intact. And let's stop playing games about this, and let's try to figure out how to manage these places in a responsible manner.
Tell our listeners, Steve, how a plot of land changes when it's designated as a national monument. What's different about it from before and after?
Sure. Well, there's a couple things. I mean, one is most land that's managed by the Bureau of Land Management, this agency inside of the Interior Department, is managed according to what they call a multiple use mandate. It's a balancing of all the different uses, from minerals to grazing to recreation to conservation. When a president establishes a national monument, what he or she is saying then is that the preservation of monument objects, and what are those? It's like the cultural sites, the fossils, the unique plants and animals in an area, the unique geology of an area, that the protection of those objects is paramount, and that's what you manage this area for. On the ground, it really means that you're not going to see new mining claims, of which there are very few in Utah, but you're not going to see new mining claims in these monuments. You're not going to see lands leased for oil and gas. And the Bureau of Land Management is going to come up with a plan, as it has for Bears Ears and Grand Staircase, that sets the ground rules for what kind of activities can and can't happen in those areas.
Let me follow up with a quick question. We've only got about a minute, Steve. What about not the designation, but the expansion and contraction that we're seeing with these national monuments? Is there something that can and should be done about that? I mean, does Congress need to step in, or do the courts need to? I know there's not an issue before the courts yet, but that seems to be another thing that's concerning some of these communities.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things, real quickly. One is I really push back on the idea that there's been this back and forth. The back and forth is really from the Trump administration and from his willingness to go off the rails, if you will, and dismantle national monuments. Prior to Trump, we just didn't see that. People understood that monuments were a durable way to protect lands. But to your larger point, yes, it should be something that Congress can and certainly has the authority to step in and say, let's solidify what the boundaries are of these monuments. As I said before, let's stop the back and forth and playing games about how should we manage it, and agree that these places are really important, and how can we make sure that they're preserved for current and future generations.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
That was the legal director of the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, Steve Block. And when we come back after the break, there have been some concerns about potential cuts to Medicaid, and a Utah coalition is working on fighting back. We're going to learn more from the Protect Medicaid Coalition next.
11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Heather Peterson. KSL's top local story this hour: the federal government is allowing Utah to ban people from buying soda with food stamps. State lawmakers passed a bill to ban soda purchases with SNAP funds earlier this year, but it hinged on the federal government signing off on the waiver since SNAP is a federal program. State Representative Kristen Chevrier sponsored the bill during this year's legislative session.
As legislators, we must be concerned both about our stewardship over taxpayer funds and our role in encouraging healthy habits.
The ban will take effect on New Year's Day 2026. Our top national story this hour from ABC News: delegates of the Southern Baptist Convention have voted in favor of a ban on same-sex marriage.
Although the resolution never mentions the word ban, the 10,000 delegates at the Southern Baptist's annual meeting did vote overwhelmingly in favor of calling for the overturning of several laws and court rulings, including the 2015 Supreme Court decision that legalized same-sex marriage. The group also called for laws promoting marriage as only between a man and a woman, and passed a resolution pushing for the curtailing of sports betting, calling it harmful and predatory. Sherry Preston, ABC News.
Brian Wilson, one of the founding members of the Beach Boys, has died at the age of 82. Pitchfork reports that in 2024, it was revealed that Wilson was living with a neurocognitive disorder. Your money at this moment: the Dow is up 242 points, the S&P 500 up 13, and the NASDAQ is up 26 points. Coming up, the days on days of scorchers continue. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 11:32.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
I am down 50 pounds in 11 weeks, and this program works. The pounds melt off. It's amazing.
I let go of 50 pounds. It felt unreal. I was so proud of myself.
Get in the best shape of your life with Soda Weight Loss.
Just 3 weeks in, and pounds are dropping off very quickly. I am down 26 pounds in 3 weeks.
Summer is right around the corner. Your summer body starts right here because Soda's summer savings are on.
Every single day, Soda Weight Loss is helping people let go of the weight without drugs, without hunger, and the weight stays off.
I tried other things, came to soda, just amazing.
I started on soda 8 months ago, and I have released 80 pounds now.
Summer savings, stunning results, only at Soda Weight Loss. Get started now at sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com.
Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
The Management Minute is a service of the MBA program in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. I'm Professor Scott Hammond. Recently, 300 residents of Chelsea, Michigan, turned up to help a local bookstore move. They formed a human chain from the old location to the new location and passed almost 10,000 books to help this business. What a great community. You will spend much of your life in a work community. It might be a not my problem kind of a place, or it might be let's help each other always kind of a place. I saw a CEO helping on the loading dock, a foreman picking up a hammer, and a senior editor writing copy just to help when it was needed. Those actions don't just help in hard times, they create the kind of work communities we all want to be a part of. Learn more about healthy work communities in an MBA program from Utah State. Go to utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com. I'm Scott Hammond. Hope to see you in one of our classes.
Hey, it's Mike Rohn. If I have a choice, I like to do business with companies that actually stand for something. That's why I switched from Verizon to Pure Talk. No offense to Verizon, I'm sure they stand for something. I just don't know what it is. Pure Talk, on the other hand, is a veteran-owned company that supports our military in a big way, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I also appreciate unlimited talk and text and plenty of data for half the cost of the big guys, and I do like being on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month. But what I really appreciate is no contract, no cancellation fees, and Pure Talk's commitment to handle all their customer service in this country. I saw it for myself. I went to Georgia, I got a tour of their headquarters, I met their CEO, and I talked to the same customer service folks that you'll talk to when you dial pound 250 and say keyword micro. Switch today and save 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say keyword micro. Pure Talk, a wireless company that actually stands for something.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's Double Rewards credit card promotion. Here's Ricky Meese.
Finally, back to a good drive once again on I-15 in Utah County. Good speeds returning to northbound I-15, going from the top of Orem up to Pleasant Grove. But in Salt Lake County, we had a small accident northbound I-15 right about 1300 south. It was out of traffic on the shoulder, just enough to cause a little bit of backup on the freeway in that area. And then, of course, our road work causing the usual delays southbound I-15 in Davis County, Kaysville to Farmington. Discover the art of adventure in Cedar City, the gateway to parks, plays, high elevation recreation, ATV and downhill trails, chairlift rides, topped off with unique shops and savory bites. Plan at visitcedarcity.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Mostly cloudy today and some scattered rain, but temperatures will still reach up into about 96 degrees. The rest of this week is expected to be just as hot, with temperatures in the mid-90s throughout at least Monday. Right now it's mostly cloudy and 82 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
You know, Holly, one of the things we've been able to do this week, and I've really enjoyed it, is break down the one big, beautiful bill. Right. And we've talked about so many aspects of it. We've actually had a couple of congressmen join us yesterday and talk about parts of it. We've had other people bring in concerns and suggestions and support for it. It is a 1,038-page long bill, and there are just so many facets to it that we haven't been able to deal with all of them. But one of them involves concerns about cuts to Medicaid, and a Utah coalition is working on that to help to fight that back. Let's talk to a public affairs supervising attorney of the Disability Law Center, Nate Krippus, about those concerns. Nate, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And tell our listeners what concerns you have and what's the source of those.
So obviously, as you mentioned, the bill is very large, and there's a lot of different pieces. But I think our biggest concern really just is the impact that this bill is going to have on Medicaid beneficiaries or recipients, and honestly, even some Medicare beneficiaries as well. And I think going through a number of provisions. Obviously, there's changes to what they're calling community engagement, which is a work requirement for folks who want to get access to Medicaid, would have to be working 80 hours or in school or doing community service for that amount. And that would have to be documented every 6 months. We've seen similar types of programs across the country. Georgia and Arkansas come to mind, where this has led to massive coverage loss. And it really hasn't helped anyone find work. And so, as the federal Congress is looking at proposed changes and cuts, these would really have a devastating impact on Utahns with disabilities and parents, families, things like that. And so those are really our concerns. I mean, just trying to draw attention to how this is going to impact Utahns and what these changes would really mean. I think those are our concerns.
Can you talk to our listeners a little bit about specifically the work requirements and how people could meet those? I know the argument on the other side is we don't need able-bodied people, on Medicaid. This is just going to be for the people who really need it. And I know that the Coalition to Protect Medicaid, yeah, you have a different concern. Can you talk to us about some of those?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, obviously I appreciate that what they're saying is that this is about able-bodied adults, but, this is focusing on expansion, which the Utah voters approved back in 2018, I believe it was. And what we actually know about expansion, because the state of Utah is actually seeking their own work requirements, a little bit different than what is in the big, beautiful bill, is that if you look at least the state level exemptions, they say about 90% of the population would actually meet those exemptions and should. And so it's hard to see what we're really talking about when, it's maybe, 7,000 people in Utah that might not meet these exemptions. It's not some widespread thing. And I think the question about able-bodied adults is challenging to me in that we know that 60% of those on Medicaid expansion are people with mental illness or substance use disorder, and that's to say nothing of people with physical disabilities and other chronic illnesses. And so when we say we're coming after, or they're coming after those able-bodied adults or those people who it's really, really needed for, I think it's been pretty clear that is what expansion was designed for, was to ensure that these people had access to Medicaid. And by requiring work, what we're likely to see is these requirements are really, even with that 90% number, we know that people have to meet these requirements, meaning they have to fill out paperwork. They have to, do this every 6 months. They have to show, in Utah at least, they have to show they're applying for jobs, whereas the federal level work requirement actually doesn't have any exemption for somebody who's looking for work. So if you're looking for work, that doesn't qualify as a work requirement. And so that's going to lead to coverage loss or people not having access to Medicaid. And it's not just, they're not working, it's that they're actively trying to. But this paperwork and these things, I mean, we've seen the coverage loss. On top of that, this is going to be expensive for the state to manage. I think in other states, you've seen like $60 million in an effort to really manage this for something that doesn't help people find work. And really just leads to coverage loss. The only reason this is a cut that saves the federal government money is because people lose coverage. That's what the work requirement will do. So it's hard to say we're just trying to get access for people who really need it when we know that people who really do need Medicaid are gonna lose coverage. And frankly, people have to be healthy to work. You need that coverage. I think Medicaid is a way to get people into that pathway to work that they really want. So it's hard for me to understand the purpose of this other than just to lead to coverage loss.
Nate, it's interesting that you mentioned the 2018, I think it was a ballot initiative that the voters voted on then. And they voted, in fact, the Utahns voted, a majority of Utahns voted to expand Medicaid coverage, didn't they, at that time? And to you, I guess what you're saying is what this big, beautiful bill does is not necessarily consistent with the will of the people, even though some people say, hey, Medicaid is being abused.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think if there was a conversation genuinely about waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid, I think there are probably conversations to be had. Although, if you look at the data and what we have, most of that is not on the beneficiary side. If you look, most of the time, any waste, fraud, or abuse that is found is on the provider side. But these cuts are really aimed at taking away coverage. And you're right. The voters voted to expand Medicaid. I think it was 56% or something of the voters of Utah. So obviously bipartisan support for Medicaid expansion. And right now what we're talking about is putting requirements upon people that are going to lead. They are going to lead to coverage loss. I mean, the state's work requirement is clear that there will be coverage loss with a work requirement. And so to suggest that that's only going to apply to those quote unquote able-bodied adults and for who the program was designed for, I think is just a fallacy. Because ultimately what we can see is that, these requirements are going to mean, for people who are, homeless, for people with serious mental illness, for people with substance use disorder, people who need additional support, somebody's going to have to fill out that paperwork for them sometimes, right? Some of those people are going to need support to do that. And if they don't do that, they're going to lose coverage. And so I think we've made a lot of effort in the state in addressing homelessness and trying to provide the support to people with serious and persistent mental illness. You look at the Huntsman Receiving Center that was just built in Salt Lake County, the work we've done to try and, divert people from the criminal justice system. And I think what we're talking about here is a program at the federal level, at the state level, that's going to lead to rolling a lot of that back. And I think that's just incredibly unfortunate.
One quick question as we wrap up our conversation, but have you had any response from Utah senators?
Our coalition is hoping to meet with Senator Curtis sometime before the vote takes place in the Senate. Obviously, we don't have the Senate version of the bill, so we're still awaiting that. We do have a commitment from his office that he will meet with us prior to a vote. We had a meeting set up. Scheduling got mixed up and we had to cancel, but we're still hoping to meet with him soon. We have not, to this point, I think, heard from Senator Lee's office, but I know a number of members of the coalition have met with all of the offices in the delegation to try and share our concerns. So we're doing everything we can to make them aware of the concerns we have and what will happen in Utah. And we know our state legislators are doing the same. We've had a lot of engagement from state legislators who want to see Medicaid protected, and I know they're helping as well.
That's right. Nate Krippus, attorney with the Disability Law Center, thank you for joining us this morning. And when we come back after the break, a new study found increased screen time, that is, screen on your computer time, is linked to aggression, anxiety, and low self-esteem in kids. Let's discuss these findings and how families in Utah are working to build connections away from screens. Stay with us.
Regardless of how old your air conditioner is, there are a few things you can do to help it last as many summers as possible. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and like so many things in our life, it's easy to take our air conditioner for granted. If you keep a clean filter, rinse the outdoor unit off every once in a while, and have it serviced once a summer, you can reduce your risk of unexpected breakdowns. But eventually it will break down, and if someone tells you that your only option is to replace it, don't be afraid to get a second opinion. You could save thousands of dollars repairing it instead of replacing it. Any Hour rarely comes across an air conditioner that just can't be repaired. That doesn't mean you won't choose to replace it anyway, but being told you don't have options, that's not cool. So if you want honest answers and straightforward options, give Any Hour Services a call. And remember, every week this summer, Any Hour Services is giving away an air conditioner to one lucky customer as part of our Coolest Summer Sweepstakes. No purchase is necessary. You can see official rules or schedule your service at anyhour.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Summertime is a fun time for everyone, and ARUP Blood Services is here to help the community stay safe and enjoy the season. Did you know the need for blood increases significantly during the summer months when people become more active with hiking, boating, blading, skateboarding, and ARUP is always there to help when someone is in need. That means the hospitals need you even more for blood donations. ARUP Blood Services is here locally in Utah to help. Donating with ARUP Blood Services ensures 100% of your donation stays here in Utah for patients that need it most. Can you spare 20 or 30 minutes? You can be entered to win a $1,500 Disney gift card, good for theme parks, restaurants, resorts, and shopping. One lucky donor will win, plus other great incentives throughout the month. Plan to stop by the Sandy Donor Center on June 14th to see the AirMed helicopter between 10 and 1 p.m. Visit utahblood.org for details, donation times, and more. That's utahblood.org.
This is Secret Clinical dominating extra stinky stress sweat. And this is regular deodorant. Secret Clinical in a heat wave.
Oh, what a beautiful day.
This is regular deodorant.
Ugh, I can't.
Secret Clinical with workout sweat.
Let's run another marathon.
And regular deodorant.
How much more?
Secret is the GOAT. Because nothing fights sweat better.
Stay fresher under pressure.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6681. That's 800-583-6681.
At Trio Senior Living, older adults aren't slowing down. The Prime Fit Wellness Program expands wellness beyond the gym into every aspect of community life. Whatever your goals, the team at Trio Senior Living has got your back, so you can put your best foot forward. Call 801-475-4004 today to schedule your personal visit.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. Civility and solutions are the pillars that drive the Orrin G. Hatch Foundation, named in honor of the late U.S. Senator who faithfully served Utah for more than 40 years. Executive Director Matt Sandgren joins us with more.
The Orrin G. Hatch Foundation seeks to build on Senator Hatch's legacy of effective policymaking. Through our programming, we have hosted numerous senators, foreign policy experts, and even 2 Supreme Court justices to discuss the challenges facing our country. National media, including the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Newsweek, and others, have highlighted our work. The Hatch Foundation is continuing its tradition of bringing Senate heavyweights to Utah to honor them with our annual Titan of Public Service Award. We're thrilled this year to host Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, on August 7th at the Grand America Hotel in downtown Salt Lake City. Our goal here at the Hatch Foundation is to restore America's institutions to their proper place and function. That's how we're building on Senator Hatch's legacy, and it's how we're securing a strong America for the next generation.
The Hatch Foundation has big plans for this year and beyond to promote civility and solutions. To learn more or get involved, visit the Foundation's website at orrinhatchfoundation.org. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
And expanded Inside Sources. Inside Sources.
It should come as no surprise that increased screen time has been linked to aggression, anxiety, and low self-esteem in kids. In response to that, our Governor Cox has declared June 9th through the 15th as Family Connection Week, which encourages families to unplug from devices and focus on quality time that is face-to-face. We have with us a guest this morning, Kristen Andrus, whose family is actually participating in Family Connection Week. Kristen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. What a great week.
Yes, so tell us about your family and how and why you chose to join in Family Connection Week.
Well, first and foremost, I would say my husband and I need this the most as we, look at research. And all of us parents know kids do follow after our own screen time. And so I am as guilty as they are. And when I'm yelling at them to get off their phones, I'm probably on my phone, doing something in my calendar or sending a text message. So I need this, and then I need to be a good model for my kids. And it's a better life, right?
So what are you, tell us about your family. I understand you have a number of children. What are their ages?
Yes. So I have 6 kids. My oldest is going to be heading into her senior year. And so 4 girls and then twin boys who are 9. And so we're calling this our core memory year, where we are being super intentional before our family changes, as they start leaving the home, to really be more intentional about how we're spending our time and what we're doing, and is what we're doing as a family what we want to do, what changes do we want to make. And so I think this week was perfect. We just came off of a 2-week vacation out of the country, and a lot of times we didn't have Wi-Fi and we didn't have access to our phones, and it was so wonderful, and my kids were bored and they didn't know what to do. And to watch them come up with such creative solutions and games and just, thinking or whatever it may be, reinforced how important this is.
So I was going to ask you, how did the kids respond to this? But it sounds like so far they've been receptive. I assume jumping into it, they were a little bit apprehensive to say, hey, wait a minute, Mom, don't take my cell phone away from me.
Right. Well, and I'd say even at home, it's worse. So, we're back home. And what I realized is when we talk to them and we schedule things together, for one, I would say I love the idea of scheduling these activities. Our family lives and dies by our family calendar. So, I know that my husband will be at dinner and pickleball tonight, which is what our family decided to do because it's in the calendar. We're planning on it. Sometimes last minute is great, but scheduling it and then having the kids involved in the planning where they want to do dinner together and then they want to play pickleball, where I think if you're forcing activities that they're not interested in, they're going to be reaching for their phone quicker than not. And so making sure that they're involved in the planning and the scheduling, making sure that they're open. But we have a lot of fun things planned this week.
So my husband and I are raising a 10-year-old granddaughter, and she lasted 5 days into summer vacation before she's like, I'm so bored, right? So what are some of the challenges you're finding when the kids are not on screens?
It is the boredom, and when they say that, I say, good, that is where creativity comes from. So like this morning, we were in the backyard, and they were begrudging it, and they were helping, and we were, pulling weeds and all the stuff that you do on summer mornings when they kind of have their chores. And as soon as I turned on Post Malone, I blasted it in the backyard. It turned out to be so much fun. They wanted to pick the songs, and then they got out the hose, and they got wet. And I think it's just creating a fun atmosphere where they weren't, as soon as the music started and they started getting wet and having fun, they actually forgot about their phones. And so if you're forcing them to go to something that they don't want to do, but I think having, you have to direct them to something else. So we have a game table that they love. There's card games. My kids love card games. They love spoons. And so you have to direct them to something else. Being bored is fine for a while, but then it's like, are we going to go for a hike? Are we going to come grocery shopping with me? Pick your favorite 3 snacks. Whatever those things may be, you do have to kind of direct them to something else after a while, or that, boredom leads them to sneaking an iPad or something like that.
Kristen, how did you hear about Family Connection Week? And more importantly, I guess, how did you sell it to the kids?
I love watching what Governor Cox is up to, and Amy Winder Newton is a great friend of mine, and she's the one that's heading this up with the governor's office. And when I heard about it, I think on social media, actually, which is ironic, right? Because I was on my phone. It's like I said, I thought this is needed, and it is along with a whole month that's out there. And so I just love the idea that it's called National Family Strengthening Month, from Mother's Day to Father's Day. And we just know, we know what we need to do, and yet it's still so hard. And so I think when you have something like this, where you have a week, you can set it aside, you can know that now we're still going to be on our phones, right? But we have times that we know we're not, and the kids know it's going to be fun or it's going to be enjoyable. I think by the way, I think once they're off of them, they enjoy it too. And they're grateful for it, too. They don't want to be addicted to their phones either.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Kristen. Good luck with the rest of the week.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm guilty. As you've noticed, just from our 3 days together, I check my phone a lot because I'm still sort of trying to wind down the law practice. But it's unfair to my wife. It's unfair to my family. And she absolutely insists when we go to dinner, or when we sit down for dinner at home, that the phones are nowhere near the table. Yeah. Even if it's ringing, even if you can hear it, whatever, you are not to answer the phone.
Look,
and I think it's great.
I think Kristen brought up some good points. It's for adults. And just like she said, I have my phone at dinner, and I've had to put it away before I tell the kids they better put theirs away, right? And I went on a humanitarian trip one time where it was a no phones. I thought I was going to die.
For the first few minutes, probably. And then,
oh, really? Like, what if something terrible happens? Well, this is my phone. I use it for my camera. I can't function without it. There was some detox time for sure.
But you're younger than me, but we can both remember when we didn't have phones, when we weren't tied to the phones, and we got along just fine.
I know.
There was no problem. I remember, we started out with these little pagers. You'd wear it on your hip, and it would beep, and it would say somebody's calling you, and like, oh, I gotta have my pager on. Sleep, have it near the bed, and then it became the phone, and then it became, oh, you've got to be tied to the phone all day. I applaud our governor for doing something like this, and just unplug your device, spend some time, do face-to-face, and just, I think there should be, it's easy for me to say because my kids are out of the house, but tell the kids no phones for a little while. Let's get away from them.
Look, I just have to tell you a fun fact for today, right? So when I write the Utah Policy newsletter, I always do the day, whatever it is. Today is National Corn on the Cob Day. So it is an American thing, right? I've been in Europe, and they're like, corn is for pigs. Like, we don't do that here, right? And root beer tastes like medicine. But here, it's a really great thing, and that's my fun fact of the day.
Well, I wished I had a fun fact of the day, but I like that one. We had corn on the cob this weekend, and I hadn't had it yet this summer, but you forget how good it is. And, my wife always prepares it so well. It's not that it's that hard to prepare, but, I put way too much butter on it. I put way too much salt on it. But you can't have enough of either of those when I start enjoying
so let me ask you this.
Corn on the cob.
Do you roll your cob in the stick of butter, or do you spread the butter on the top?
If I had my choice, I roll. But my wife does not like the butter when I'm done rolling. She's like, no, we're not doing that. But rolling, you just get a lot more.
You
get it everywhere.
So
that's the way I like it. Yeah, then your butter sort of toast after that. we celebrated the life of Sly Stone yesterday because he passed away from Sly and the Family Stone. We're learning today that Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys passed away earlier today. This was a song that he co-founded with the Beach Boys, and it involves Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City. From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio,
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, KSL News Time, 12 o'clock. This is Midday. I'm Britt Johnson, in for Maria Chaleos today. KSL's top story this hour. Utah's ban on people buying soda with food stamps has been given the green light by federal officials. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has more.
State lawmakers passed a bill with the intent to ban soda purchases with SNAP funds earlier this year, but it all hinged on the federal government signing off on a waiver since SNAP is a federal program. Well, yesterday, Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy both signed off on it, meaning Utah can officially move forward with the soda ban.
We should not force Utahns to eat certain foods, and we are not doing that, but we should also not use tax funds to subsidize choices that don't have nutritional value.
State Representative Kristen Chevrier sponsored the bill during this year's legislative session.
We are actively spending conservatively $10 million plus per year in taxpayer funds on soda.
SNAP recipients in Utah will no longer be able to buy soda with those funds starting New Year's Day 2026. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
It might almost be 100 degrees outside, but homeless advocates are already planning for a busy winter. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
The Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness says they're expecting an even greater need for beds and warming spaces this year. Director of the Office of Homelessness and Criminal Justice Reform for Salt Lake County, Andrea Wild, says last year they needed around 1,070 beds. This year they need about 280 more and an additional 10 hotel room vouchers for families.
Wild says that includes 30 additional emergency shelter beds specifically for the youth population. KSL's top national stories. 2 protesters arrested in Los Angeles are now facing charges for throwing Molotov cocktails at law enforcement over the weekend. The announcement by U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, Bill Esseley.
The escalation of violence by these rioters poses a serious threat to our agents and the safety of the public.
The 2 protesters, according to DOJ officials, say they will be charged with possession of an explosive, which can mean up to 10 years in prison. Meanwhile, tensions are escalating between the president and California's governor.
President Trump is continuing to criticize California Governor Gavin Newsom, posting on social media Wednesday morning that the governor is, quote, incompetent. The president, in a new podcast interview with the New York Post, again left open the possibility of Newsom being arrested, with the president's reason for that being he's not doing a good job. Newsom, meanwhile, on Tuesday night, slammed the president.
He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety.
Karen Travers, ABC.
And just a word of warning to anybody who is thinking about any type of violence or chaos or property damage or vandalism. It will not happen here, and you will